2 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
Live from the police show, yet not overly ostentatious studios of CBS Sports Radio here in beautiful New York City, sitting on top of the 10th floor of 345 Hudson Street. Welcome on in to a Tuesday edition of the Zach Gelb Show across all the great local CBS Sports Radio affiliates, Sirius XM, Channel 158, the free Odyssey app, and of course streaming on YouTube. 855-212-4CBS is the number to jump on in. 855-212-4227. You could always get at me on Instagram, where I'm straight flexing, or via the good old cesspool of Twitter at Zach Gelb. That's ZACHGELB. Whole lot to do today. Got Moist Mike and also Stuart Kovacs along the other way. We'll take you all the way up until 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific. The eventual Hall of Famer, legendary NFL quarterback, Drew Brees, going to stop by an hour 40 from now at 4:40 p.m. Eastern, 1:40 p.m. Pacific. But we got to start off with a game that had a lot of hype, a lot of buzz to wrap up Week 11 in the NFL. And for a while, it looked like Kansas City was making a statement. It looked like Kansas City said, hey, you guys think we're vulnerable? We're going to put our defense on full display. We're going to show you something that Zach Gelb has been saying since week 3, that this Kansas City Chiefs defense is really damn good this year and is the strength of this team this year, and also is not getting enough credit. And that was the tone at halftime. But then once the Chiefs got into the locker room in the second half, even though it appeared like they were the better team, even though it appeared like the Eagles were having another sluggish, pedestrian type of game, and the defense was getting carved up in the first half on the run, and the offense couldn't do nothing, and you saw the way that the Chiefs' defensive line was manhandling one of the better offensive lines of the NFL in the Philadelphia Eagles, then the tide sort of started to turn in the second half. Because when you entered the fourth quarter, and remember, this is someone that picked the Eagles last night. This is someone that picked the Eagles by 4 points last night. I didn't think the Eagles were going to win that game entering the fourth quarter. I didn't. Even with picking them to win the game before the game did start and sprinkling money on the money line. Because when I watched that game through 3 quarters, or even 3 quarters and change, it was apparent that on the field on Monday Night Football, the Chiefs on that singular game were the better team. But then this is what the Eagles have done. And I kind of roll my eyes through the first 9 weeks of the Eagles season when people were saying, oh, they're 8-1, but they're a fraudulent 8-1. Oh, they're 8-1, but they're not really that good. And what I've sat here and said from the start of the season up until now, if you keep on telling me a team that deserves the benefit of the doubt, a team that got to the Super Bowl last year, that they're 8-1, but you don't like the way that they're winning, well, what's going to happen when they fully start to click? What is going to transpire when, like last year, they put it all together? And in the final moments of that game, in the final 6-7 minutes of the game, the Eagles fell in line with what they've been this season, what they've been the last 2 years. And that's winners. I don't care how it looks. This is not the Minnesota Vikings from last year where you knew they were a fraudulent team. This is a team that in back-to-back years, they've only lost, 4 or 5 games? It's crazy. They have been dominant. They've been elite. They've been one of the standards in the NFL for the last few years. And that's what the great teams do. When they don't play their best, when it looks like they should probably lose a game, they walk away from the game victorious. And you see these two teams, the Eagles and the Chiefs. I don't think it would shock anybody if we're sitting here on Super Bowl Sunday in Vegas and it's a rematch of the Super Bowl from a year ago. But you look at the Eagles compared to Kansas City, there's more concern about the Chiefs when we question these two teams than the Philadelphia Eagles. Like, I look at Philly, their offensive line, even though it did not play well through the first half, is dominant. Their receivers, they won a game last night. A.J. Brown had 1 catch and was frustrated all throughout the game. But their receivers are phenomenal with A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. Their quarterback is just a winner. He's just a dog. And then defensively, that defense up front, it's amazing how many guys that the Eagles have, old, young, new, guys that have been around for years, that just get after the quarterback. And that play that Jalen Carter almost made on the spike was sick. The fact that he almost picked it off and Mahomes was spiking the football, it's always one of those things where you're sitting around with your buddies watching a game, or wherever you watch a game with it, you go, oh, someone should just dive at the football when they spike it. Carter tried that, and he almost picked off the ball, which would have been one of the greatest, most athletic plays we've ever seen coming from a big fella on the defensive line. But you look at the Eagles, you walk away from that game, and it's just a reminder how dangerous, how lethal, and how much for granted some people have taken Philadelphia. Where if you keep on saying, oh, they're 7-1, they're 8-1, they're 9-1, but I don't think they're that good. What the bleep are you watching? Because this is what's scary for the rest of the league. This what should make the other 31 teams crap their pants, is that if we're talking about this team this way at 9-1, oh, they could have lost. This could have gone against them. This could have happened. Imagine when they start to put it all together. And remember, this is a team coming off a Super Bowl loss. How many teams do we usually see lose a Super Bowl? We always talk about a Super Bowl hangover for the team that wins, but how many times do you see a team that loses the Super Bowl and then the next year they're just really sluggish? Or the next year they're not even close to getting back to where they are. We're now nitpicking with Philadelphia about how they win. And they've only lost one game this year. And quite frankly, let's be fair. Let's do it both ways. If you want to say how many times they could have lost games that they ended up winning, how about the game that they lost? If Hurts doesn't make that idiotic decision at the end and just holds on to the football, they're undefeated right now. So there's not a legitimate, egregious flaw with this team. And out of all the teams in the NFL, you put a gun to my head and you say, Zach, who's the team that you have the most confidence in to get to the Super Bowl this year? It's the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, on the other side, going to Kansas City, there is concern with Kansas City. But a lot of times when people say you're concerned about a team, usually hear like the big red warning sign going off, like alert, alert, alert. It's not to that level of concern where it's, oh my God, this is an unmitigated disaster for Kansas City, or oh my goodness gracious, the Kansas City Chiefs suck. No, it's not that. But you look at the Chiefs, it's almost inconceivable that in 3 straight games for them, with their great quarterback, with their unbelievable video game quarterback, that this team has played 3 straight games and they have not scored a point. They've been shut out in the second half of 3 straight games, going back to Denver, Miami, and then last night. And that's not on the fault of the quarterback, because we all know how ridiculous Mahomes is. He should have thrown a touchdown last night to Marquez Valdes-Scantling, and Marquez Valdes-Scantling kind of looked like Clifford Franklin in The Replacements before they had Clifford Franklin go do something with an elephant, if you watch that movie, to get some sticky substance on his hand. Major League Baseball would try to ban that, by the way. But you see Kansas City, the Chiefs are a team that, yes, we could say they're vulnerable. Yes, we could say their offense is not as high octane as it's been in previous years. But that doesn't mean, even with the concern around Kansas City, that they don't have a shot this year. Because if you want to tell me the Chiefs are vulnerable, the Chiefs should have concerns, the Chiefs have warts, you're not wrong. But who's going to dethrone them in the AFC? And right now, as I sit here today, after watching 11 weeks of football, there's only one team that I could say confidently, and it's by the slimmest of margins, that is definitely better in the AFC than Kansas City, and that's the Baltimore Ravens. And the Baltimore Ravens just, we think, have lost Mark Andrews for the season, even though there's a slight window he could come back. And even in a game where they do defeat the Cincinnati Bengals, you saw injuries play a factor in that game, not only with Mark Andrews, but Joe Burrow going down on Thursday Night Football, being done for the year. And even in that game, and past history matters, Lamar Jackson suffered an ankle injury, and he said he's fine. But with that being said, it's impossible when you watch the Ravens to not think, oh, well, Lamar's got hurt the last 2 years and hasn't been available at the end of the season. And not that anyone wants to root for an injury. I would love to see the Ravens in the Super Bowl. But if you do see Lamar Jackson go down, then who's the team that you're going to say goes to the Super Bowl in the AFC? It's Kansas City. So it shows you, even when there's some holes in Superman's cape, even when the Chiefs appear to have some warts that they did not have in the last few years, they could still maybe be the prettiest person at the dance at the end of the season. And if you don't believe me, let me just take you back to last year. Last year, what did everyone say before the start of the season? Yeah, they got Mahomes. Yeah, they got Kelsey. But they don't have Tyreek Hill. They could be got this year. The Chargers could win the AFC West. Remember, that was the tone. That was the conversation. That was the ridiculousness. Some of it spewed by me. Some of it spewed by others. Some of it spewed by a lot of you listening, where we were that dumb to think that the Chiefs could actually be got last year inside the AFC. And Cincinnati has been the biggest team that's been the biggest pain in their ass the last few years. They lose in the AFC Championship game to Kansas City. Before that, Buffalo folds, and no one else really took the baton and ran with it. So Kansas City's telling the rest of the AFC, yeah, our offense isn't that great this year. We got Mahomes. Yeah, we got Kelsey, but he's still banged up. He's contemplating retirement with all that stuff that you hear before the game. But outside of that, even though Isaiah Pacheco runs really hard, outside of that on offense, they don't have much. But you can rely on Sky Moore Kadarius Toney, Marquez Valdez-Scantling. Like, they don't have anything outside of 15 and 87 that you look at on the offensive side of the ball and say, oh, yeah, I trust those guys each and every week. And even with that being said, Kelsey had a turnover last night. Mahomes cost his team in the red zone last night. Great move by Harry Roseman getting the safety from Tennessee, Kevin Byard. So we could talk about the problems with Kansas City. And their problems with Kansas City. If you think it's crazy when you tune in today, and you've heard me say this for the last few weeks, that the strength of this team is their defense, and you go, what the hell is this Gelb guy talking about? Well, you haven't been paying attention. Because the strength of this team this year is the defense. Now the question just becomes, can you get a full 60-minute effort from this offense? Because the last 3 weeks, we've seen them, against the Broncos, they had nothing. But against the Eagles and also against the Dolphins, the offense played well. The offense did enough in the first half. But then once they got to halftime, they either shut it down, or once they moved the ball, then they did stall. And that's the problem. And I have to think from now until the end of the season, Mahomes is going to find a way to make this be good enough. Because that's what the great quarterbacks do. How many years did I watch Tom Brady with guys like David Givens, David Patton, Brandon LaFell, Chris Hogan? We're not talking about household names. And every year they had a shot. So for Mahomes and for Andy Reid and for Travis Kelce, it's about finding that next receiver from here on out. And you could crush the Chiefs for not getting enough around Mahomes this year and all that stuff. But still, even with all the problems, even with all the complaining that people have, we do a Super Bowl draft right now. Who's going to go to the Super Bowl this year? Yeah, a lot of people are going to take the Eagles. A lot of people are going to take the 49ers. Some will even say, what about the Detroit Lions? Right? There's only 3 teams in the NFC. Then you get to the AFC, and it's a legitimate debate. Ravens or Chiefs. Outside of that, I can't take anybody else seriously. Like, the Dolphins are good. They just lost to Kansas City. And look how many problems people have today with Kansas City. No one else in the AFC West you could trust outside of the Chiefs. In the North, yeah, sure, the Ravens, I just said that. Bengals just lost Burrow for the season. The Browns have a heck of a defense, but they don't have a quarterback right now. And in the AFC South, oh, you want to tell me the Jaguars? Oh, yeah, the Jaguars lost in week 2. To who? Kansas City. So they are still a top 5 team in the NFL. They still may even be a top 3 team in the NFL. And if you tell me that these are the problems with Kansas City and they're on the offensive side of the ball, they exist. They're there. They're apparent. But we're judging it off the standard of the greatness that we've expected in years past. Sometimes you just need to be good to win. And this year, you may not need to be elite to win. You may not need to be great to win, because there's not many great or elite teams in the NFL. And maybe the Chiefs just finding a way to be good, solid, decent on offense will be enough for them, bare minimum, to get to an AFC title game again, to get to a Super Bowl again, or maybe even win it all again. So definitely some reason for concern. Definitely some reason to have a little slight panic. But let's remember, we did something very similar last year. And who ended up winning the championship last year? Kansas City. Where's your concern level with the Kansas City Chiefs? 855-212-4CBS, 855-212-4227. Where do you put the Chiefs in the top teams of the NFL? And in the AFC for this season, who do you have more confidence in? The Ravens or the Chiefs? We'll take a break. When we come on back, the Steelers finally did something that I've been advocating for the longest time. We'll react to that next, and what is the biggest cause of detail and thing now we need to monitor in Pittsburgh moving forward.
You're in a 5-minute break. 4 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 4 minutes remaining. 3 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 3 minutes remaining. 2 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 2 minutes remaining. 1 minute, 30 seconds remaining. 1 minute remaining. "45 seconds remaining. 30 seconds remaining. 15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
He's He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio.
Matt Canada, though, should not have a job because it's the definition of insanity to do the same thing over and over again and expect different results. So I'm not exonerating Mike Tomlin. I'm not letting Kenny Pickett off the hook, but you need to do something because doing nothing makes absolutely, positively zero sense. And it's the definition of, quite frankly, jackassery.
This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
All righty, this is Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. You can find the poll question on my Twitter, also at CBS Sports Radio as well, at Zach Gelb, ZACHGELB. Who do you have more confidence in to represent the AFC in the Super Bowl? The Ravens or Chiefs? Early premature returns. 57.1% say the Baltimore Ravens. 42.9% say the Kansas City Chiefs. Ken Carman chimes in. He goes, the Browns. And that is like the most obnoxious but funniest thing, and I think Ken's doing that on purpose. When you ask a poll question, and then people go, oh, but this option isn't available. What about them? The reason why we're asking Ravens or Chiefs, because those are the two best teams in the AFC right now. And I want to see how much after last night, with the Chiefs going down to the Eagles in a game where it looked like the Chiefs were better, and then they don't win the game and the offense stalls in the second half, where people are at in terms of saying Kansas City's vulnerable, and still then when push comes to shove, do you trust them to get to the Super Bowl the most, or is it someone like the Ravens who have challenged them? And so far, I think, with what I've seen through the first 11 weeks of the season, the Ravens are the better team. Let's get, though, to the Steelers. So, you heard it on Friday. I said going into the weekend that if the Pittsburgh Steelers do not take care of business against the Cleveland Browns, with starting Dorian Thompson-Robinson at quarterback, with teams that are very similar, where we know what to expect out of the defense, where the defense is just awesome. Both defenses are kick-ass. Myles Garrett is a stud. TJ Watt is a stud. That if Matt Canada couldn't produce an offense, regardless of what you think about Kenny Pickett, regardless of what you think about Najee Harris and the offensive line, to outscore a quarterback making a second career start, then he should be fired. And that's what transpired on Sunday, where it's not even as if the Browns set the bar really high. They were only able to score 13 points in the game. As an offensive coordinator, as a seasoned offensive coordinator, with a quarterback who's not good but in year number 2, you should be able to take advantage and find a way to just get to 14 points. And if you would have just scored 2 touchdowns or a touchdown and then a few field goals, you would have defeated the Cleveland Browns. But the Steelers couldn't do that. And the Steelers got lucky because they had one big play. Jaylen Warren got the touchdown, and then they barely went to him the rest of the game. So Matt Canada needed to go. I've been saying this for weeks, that Matt Canada needed to get fired. On Monday, they didn't do so. And last night, the move finally happened, and it was announced today. Because the way that I think this did go down, regardless of what Mike Tomlin said at his presser today, or regardless of what people are going to report, the feeling is that this was Art Rooney II's call. That he was the one that jumped in, and he was the one that said, Mike, we love you. We've now heard you, Coach Tomlin, for weeks. Defend Matt Canada. Refuse to fire him. Refuse to make an in-season firing. But after what we just saw on Sunday, we can't allow you, even with how much we respect you as a coach, even where I don't think Mike Tomlin is on the hot seat, even though you can question his job because he hasn't won a playoff game since the 2016 season. There's legitimate reasons why some Steelers fans, even though I don't think he's going to get fired, nor should he get fired, but there are reasons why Steelers fans may want to move on. But to continue to go back to the well and do the same thing over and over again with Matt Canada just didn't make any sense. And for everyone that's tweeting me or for everyone that's sending me an Instagram message, well, you know it's not just Matt Canada's fault. Yeah, I watch the games. I'm fully cognizant of that. I'm not telling you the Steelers firing Matt Canada means that now all of a sudden the Steelers are going to look like the yellow and black the way that they were with Big Ben Roethlisberger or with Terry Bradshaw or with Hines Ward or Antoine Randall. Like, I'm not telling you that they're going to be those great Steeler offenses. But there is a pecking order here. When you have teams that you don't believe in coaches and you don't believe in players, before everybody goes, it's not as if we just blow the entire thing up at once. It's a process. And the first guy that was on the chopping block was Matt Canada. He now got the axe, and internally they promote guys within to see if it could jumpstart the team, see if it could jumpstart the offense. And guess what happens now throughout the rest of the season? Kenny Pickett needs to show and prove his worth. I don't believe Kenny Pickett's the guy. I said this a few weeks ago, that I'm not a big believer in Kenny Pickett. I don't think Kenny Pickett is anywhere close to being a franchise quarterback. But now, everyone that used Canada as an excuse, everyone like myself that implored the Steelers, and I'm not a Steelers fan, to fire Matt Canada, we got our wish. Now, if the offense still stinks, if the offense can't even look decent, and we got to remember the standard here. I'm not asking the Steelers offense to be this high-flying 07 Patriot offense. I'm not asking them to be the greatest show on turf. I'm asking them to manage the game. I'm asking them to have a pulse, to be competent, to be decent. Because look at the AFC right now. Ravens, really damn good team. Even they have had offensive problems at times this year finding their identity. Kansas City, they are now a defensive first team this year, if you're just judging by this season. After that, you have the Miami Dolphins. Yeah, they have a great offense. Last 2 weeks, they struggled, though. You look inside your own division. We talked about the Ravens. How about the Cleveland Browns? The Browns are 7-3. They don't have a quarterback. But Dorian Thompson-Robinson woke up at the end of the game and outplayed Kenny Pickett. So if Kenny Pickett has any hope or any chance or wants to show me that he should be the starting quarterback next year, it's not just make the playoffs. Like, this team is 6-4. They should be able to win 4 more games and get into the postseason. And maybe 10 doesn't get you in. Who knows? But with Canada being out there, that's just the first domino to fall. And the next domino to fall is Kenny Pickett. So now you get all the attention away from Matt Canada, and now you have Kenny Pickett backed up into a corner, and let's see what he's got. And maybe this offense changes a little bit where they use Warren Moore at the end of the game, and they're not concerned about the feelings getting hurt of Najee Harris. Time for George Pickens and Deontay Johnson to get on the same page. This is not going to be a fix overnight. This is not going to be something that changes just because you get rid of the offensive coordinator. But I'm not asking for a drastic change. I'm not asking for this to be the greatest offense you've ever seen. I'm just asking them to be average. And when Kenny Pickett can't be average and he can't change this around in the final 2 months or so in the season, then guess what? Mike Tomlin, you want people to stop coming after you? Mike Tomlin, you want people to stop questioning you? Then you got to get rid of Kenny Pickett. And you got to get in someone that knows how to call the plays better and knows how to actually play the quarterback position. Because what you've seen transpired in Pittsburgh pretty much for the last decade, when the offense is awesome, the defense sucks. And when the defense is awesome, the offense sucks. You don't win that way. You don't win to the Steelers' standard of Super Bowls that way. Even if the defense is better than the offense, it can't be when the defense steps on the seesaw, the offense flies all the way up in the air and off the seesaw. Yeah, the defense may be a little bit heavier than the offense, but they got to show some resistance on the seesaw. They got to find a way to at least not make their butts fly right off the seat of the seesaw. And this team this year, the Steelers, they could be the Browns. They can be. They could be a team that makes the playoffs, win a playoff game. But the only way that happens is if you find a way to get an average offense. And with Matt Canada, this team was nowhere close, and they were not heading into the direction of being an average offense. So now, Canada out, you have him be the scapegoat, him be the person that takes the heat, and deservedly so. Like, he shouldn't be just exonerated. He shouldn't be this person that we have sympathy for, and they're like, oh, he's the victim here. He didn't carry his own weight. But now Kenny Pickett's got to be the guy. He's got to be the leader. He's got to be that dude. And if it doesn't happen, then guess what? At the end of the year, Mike Tomlin, you got to go get a new quarterback and a new OC. Because you look at the defense, that defense is ready to win. That defense is a championship defense. But offensively, they can't do jack right now. Zach Gelb here with you on CBS Sports Radio. We'll take a break. The biggest game this weekend in football is in college. It's the game. Ohio State and Michigan. I'll be in attendance for that. Ryan Day has done something that Urban Meyer has never done during his time as the Ohio State Buckeyes head coach. Lost to Michigan. Ryan Day's actually done it twice the last 2 years. Even though Ryan Day has only lost 6 games as his time as the head coach of the Ohio State, if he loses this game and loses 3 straight times to Michigan, will he be shown the door? We'll discuss that on the other side. Update time first. Here he is, El Capitan. Nice to work with him once again. The always well-dressed, the always stylish, the great, the fantastic, the wonderful. And no, he's not paying me. Marco Belletti.
Sports Flash.
Damn right, I'm not paying you. And we're sponsored by Progressive Insurance. Progressive makes bundling easy and affordable. Get a multi-policy discount by combining your motorcycle, RV, boat, ATV, and more. All your protection in one place. Bundle and save at Progressive.com. Sputtering offense season still right in front of them, though. The Steelers have parted ways with offense coordinator Matt Canada after he was outgained in every game this season. Mike Tomlin's now turning to Mike Sullivan for the play-calling duties.
He's done it in 2 different locations in the National Football League. He has tangible experience. I'm sure that will be helpful, but also, and probably more importantly, as a quarterback coach, man, he works closely with Kenny, and so looking for fluidity in that area, and some cohesion there, and really getting a feel for what he does well, and hopefully that aids us as well.
Elsewhere, Colts have released 4-time Pro Bowler Shaq Leonard about a month after he voiced his frustration about playing time. Leonard underwent a pair of back surgeries last year to repair nerve damage. College hoops, you got Gonzaga leading Syracuse 39-25. They're at the break. That's the Maui Invitational. And the Padres going Mike Schilt as their new manager, said to be a 2-year deal. He managed the Cardinals for 3 years. He won Manager of the Year in 2019. I'm Marco Belletti.
CBS Sports Radio is everywhere, Perloff, at home, in your car, and, of course, on your phone and tablet.
Maggie, you can find us on your local affiliate, Sirius XM Channel 158, or the free Odyssey app.
'You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 3 minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio.
If you're Cleveland, I think you got to make one phone call. Because the Cleveland Browns, if they had a quarterback, they would be a bona fide Super Bowl contender. You got to call Tom Brady. You have to. And as crazy as this seems, the NFL, that was the NFL, the 20 years Tom Brady played in it, Cleveland wasn't a winning destination. But now they are. And I legitimately think that if Tom Brady walked into the Browns facility tomorrow, he could win a Super Bowl this year.
This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
The Defensive Player of the Week is sponsored by the Navy Federal Credit Union, who proudly serves the Armed Forces, DoD veterans, and their families. Their members are the mission. Learn more at NavyFederal.org. This week's player is Dolphins linebacker Jalen Phillips. In Sunday's 20-13 win over the Raiders, Phillips had 6 tackles, 2 sacks, and a pick. Miami's defense as a whole held Las Vegas to 36 rushing yards and forced 3 turnovers. And I'll tell you about Jalen Phillips. I said this earlier in the year. If the Dolphins want to exceed expectations, and I picked the Dolphins to win the AFC East before the season started. But when I talk about exceeding expectations, winning a playoff game or 2, or maybe going to an AFC championship game or going to a Super Bowl, I really do believe Jalen Phillips needs to be their most valuable player. And people will say, whoa, wait, Zach. You know what Tyreek Hill's doing. Yeah, that's expected out of Tyreek Hill. Even going over 2,000 yards this year, Tyreek Hill is a stud. We all know what Tyreek Hill is. Jalen Waddle is phenomenal. Tua Tagovailoa is good. They find enough in the run game. But you need that defense to be good. You need their defense to carry its own. And it did that the last 2 weeks. And the defense played well the last 2 weeks, where even though they didn't beat Kansas City, they shut out Kansas City in the second half. And they did a heck of a job when the offense wasn't carrying its own weight against the Raiders in maintaining what was starting to be a Raiders team. Not that anyone thought they were any good, but were starting to be serviceable after taking care of business against two really bad teams in the Jets and the Giants. But you look at Jalen Phillips, like when the Eagles got to the Super Bowl last year, yeah, Hurts was awesome. A.J. Brown was awesome. Devontae Smith was awesome. That line was phenomenal. But I thought their most valuable player last year was Hassan Reddick. And look at the way that Hassan Reddick wrecked that NFC title game. And then come the Super Bowl with the problems with the turf and he couldn't get his footing and all that. You take Hassan out of the game, Eagles didn't end up finding a way to win the Super Bowl. Look last night at what Hassan Reddick was able to do early in the game up against Kansas City. So Jalen Phillips needs to have a Hassan Reddick type of impact for the Dolphins to take it to a level that a lot of us did not think that they could be capable of before the start of the season. I know early in the year he was dealing with an injury, but now back, now healthy and thriving with the Miami Dolphins. So the game this weekend, and you know what game I'm talking about. It's the game. It's Ohio State. It's Michigan. We always know this one is a big one. The last 2 years, after Ohio State has just pummeled and dominated Michigan year in and year out, Michigan took this rivalry back. Michigan showed their dominance the last 2 years, blowing them out 2 years ago, and then the game was close going into the fourth quarter last year, and then Michigan took it right to them. But Ohio State fans are now starting to wonder, fair or not, well, how much did the Stallion sign-stealing scandal factor into those two victories? So now you get a game with two fan bases, two teams that hate one another. Both of these teams, they market their entire season. For Ohio State, beat the team up north. For Michigan, oh, it's beat Ohio State, blah, 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 blah. We know where the bad blood is here. We know the hatred, the animosity, and just how these two teams can't stand one another. But now you factor in the sign-stealing scandal, you have even more bad blood with these two teams. Harbaugh, who's not even going to be on the sidelines on Saturday because he's serving the final game of that suspension for now from the Big Ten, he has said before about Ryan Day, right, the whole born on third base kind of comment, taking over Urban Meyer. And then you have Ryan Day, who basically said the other day, this was from yesterday, that there's going to be a time and place to talk. Right now it isn't. And then there's all these theories behind the scenes. How much of an involvement did Ryan Day have with the whole Connor Stallions thing getting public and all that? But the facts are Ryan Day's done a good job at Ohio State. Not a great job, even though his record's 55-6 and he coached a national championship. But when you lose back-to-back years to Michigan, and Michigan, who was dead man walking, Michigan, who had no pulse in this rivalry, then starts to not only win the last two games, but now be right in the mix as a college football playoff contender, be right in the mix as a national championship contender. You got to go show Ryan Day, and Ryan Day needs to show the Buckeyes fans that he's the right guy for the job. And I know a lot of that could be a lot of people kind of turning their head and going, Zach, the guy's only lost 6 games. You advocating for him to lose his job? No, I'm not. I'm not advocating for him to lose his job. Let me be clear. But when you lose 3 in a row, or if you lose 3 in a row to Michigan, you're going to have fans that are not rational call for your job. And last year, you lost to Michigan, then you backed your way into the college football playoff, and you did a nice job up against Georgia, but you lost. So I don't think Ryan Day's job is on the line this weekend. I don't think he will be fired. But if you've already started to hear some cries last year after losing to Michigan in back-to-back years, what happens if you do so 3 years in a row? And also, for both of these fans, this is what makes the sign-stealing scandal so fun. From the Ohio State fans, they win this game, they could say, see what happens? Look what happens when you don't have the signs. And for Michigan fans, they win this game, they go, well, you know we don't have your signs now, and we still kicked your ass. We still kicked your butt. So that's really what makes this so personal. We already know the buildup and the history and the rivalry and all of that. But that bragging right is enormous. And here's the difference from last year to this year. Even with Florida State having an injury with Jordan Travis, and some people now thinking they won't get into the college football playoff, even though I believe they win their next 2 games, they should still go to the college football playoff. You're undefeated. You're the ACC champ. You should get in the college football playoff, even if you lost your quarterback in Jordan Travis, who's a stud for the final 2 games of the season and for the rest of the season. But last year, you had complete chaos. You had teams just fold down the stretch where Ohio State was dead after that Michigan game, and then after conference championship weekend, it was like, Ohio State now is going to get in the college football playoff. I don't think enough chaos is going to occur this year because we already know the SEC title game is set, so either Georgia or Alabama is going to take one of those spots inside the SEC. In the ACC, I probably don't think Louisville has a chance, even if they're a one-loss ACC champ, but Florida State has still a legit chance to make the college football playoff. We know one spot's going to the Big Ten. You would think either Washington or Oregon are going to get in. So those 4 teams right there. And we didn't even talk about Texas, who is on pace to only have 1 loss and win the Big 12 championship. So last year, chaos did ensue. Chaos unfolded. In a 4-team playoff, and this is even more reasons why I don't think we should go to 12, which they are next year. Because, look, this Michigan-Ohio State game, as big as it is, next year when we go to 12, even if Ohio State had like 2 losses or Michigan had already a loss on their resume, yeah, it's still an important game. Yeah, it could determine who gets a home game for the college football playoff. But you know that team could still back in and make 12 teams in the college football playoff. You want to tell me because of money, all right, we got to go to more teams? 6 or 8 would have been fine. 12 is just such a stretch and such a reach, and it takes away from the importance, especially during rivalry weekend. But now with maybe all these conference changes, who even knows what rivalry weekend is going to look like in a few years? Won't change for Michigan and Ohio State, but for other schools leaving the Pac-12 and the status of a lot of those rivalries looking like they're going to come to an end. So this game, there's so much on the line. But the way I think we should talk about Ryan Day's future, it's not will Ohio State move on from Ryan Day if he loses this game and suffers his 7th loss of his career, and 3 of those being to Michigan during his time as the Ohio State head coach. Would Ryan Day think about leaving, though? And the reason why I just throw this out there, look at 2 big jobs that were open up in the last 2 years. When LSU was open, who had Brian Kelly leaving Notre Dame to go to LSU until it happened? And then you look at USC. Who had Lincoln Riley leaving Oklahoma for USC when the job opened up? So the biggest job that's available right now is A&M. And A&M is a damn good job with a ton of resources. They'll pay you a big fat contract. Look what they just paid Jimbo Fisher. They recruited so well. They had the number 1 class, and they had Nick Saban freaking out. Remember when Saban was at that small business conference, and he's begging the people at the small business conference to invest more into the collective and NIL? That was all because he was annoyed that Jimbo had a better recruiting class than him. Now, Jimbo can't coach better than Nick Saban. That's been clear. That's why Jimbo Fisher is out of a job. But that's why he went right after Jimbo Fisher and talked about how A&M was just buying everybody, because he was begging the people that were at the Alabama Small Business Conference or meeting to put more money into the Alabama football program so they could go get more recruits. It was a strategic move by Nick Saban. And then they had to have the representative of the SEC sit in between them at the SEC Media Days. Like, those two would never throw down. Come on. That would never happen. But I'll just throw this out there. Ryan Day, who doesn't seem to deal with pressure and pushback all that great, he shouldn't be in danger of losing his job at Ohio State. But he loses this weekend. He would go to 55-7 in his career as the head coach at Ohio State. Like, remarkable numbers. But you know how intense and how passionate that fan base is of Ohio State in taking down Michigan. Urban Meyer never lost to Michigan. This would be Ryan Day's 3rd loss to Michigan. He loses this game. I just wonder if his eyes start to wander and maybe he says, time for me to leave Ohio State. Time for me to maybe explore Texas A&M. And I don't think it's crazy. I'm not saying it's likely, but I don't think it's crazy. Because all you have to look at are two big jobs that were available the last 2 years. Once again, LSU opened up. Who had Brian Kelly leaving Notre Dame? Not me. USC opens up. Who had Lincoln Riley leaving Oklahoma where they were humming? Not me. But with big jobs in college football, and A&M is a big job, we could sit here and make predictions and pontificate on who's going to get the job. I always expect the unexpected with big jobs because A&M is a big job. And maybe Ryan Day feels some of the heat, feels some of the criticism, and says, maybe a good time to jump ship and go somewhere else. So that's just something that crossed my mind and something that I just started to think about going into this game. Once again, I don't think it's likely. I do think Michigan's going to win the game right here today. I think Michigan's going to win 27-20. I think it's going to be a close game. I think it's going to be touchdown or less. I still expect Day to be the coach, but also I never expected Kelly and Lincoln Riley to leave their jobs and go over to LSU and USC. It is the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. We have a loaded hour number 2 coming up in about 5 minutes. Tom Brady sounds off on the mediocrity of the NFL. We will get into a little overreaction, proper reaction coming off Week 11. It is a Tuesday. We do that every Tuesday right here in football season on the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. And also still to come in about 40, 45 minutes from now, legendary NFL quarterback. He's been out of the league since 2020. That was his final season. Led the Saints to a Super Bowl. Started his career with the Los Angeles Chargers, the San Diego Chargers, now Los Angeles Chargers. And that, of course, is Drew Brees. He's going to stop by. So a whole lot cooking, 2 more hours to play. We will discuss Tom Brady's view of the NFL, and maybe that's a good thing that Brady sounded off of the NFL, because a lot of people thought, he'd be bland, he'd be pedestrian in the broadcast booth when he goes to Fox next year. Maybe this is the start of Tom Brady being a dominant NFL analyst. Zach Gelb Show, CBS Sports Radio, coming on back in 5.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 2 minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio. This is the Zach Gelb Show.
Alrighty, off and running hour number 2 of our radio program. That's right, it is the Zach Gelb Show, coast to coast on CBS Sports Radio. Legendary NFL quarterback Drew Brees will stop by coming up in about 40 minutes from now. We'll do a little overreaction, proper reaction 20 minutes from now. But first, we start with the greatest quarterback of all time, Tom Brady. He joined Stephen A. Smith on the Stephen A. Smith Show, which, by the way, the Stephen A. Smith Show is very entertaining. They asked him last week, some fan, like he'll respond to anybody. Stephen A. Smith on ESPN with First Take is different than Stephen A. Smith on the Stephen A. Smith Show. And I've been a big fan of Stephen A. Smith for a long time. I find him very entertaining. And I usually would never watch First Take. Now I say I watch probably First Take, have it on in the background at least 2, maybe even sometimes 3 days a week. And I really don't watch that many talk shows or debate shows anymore, because when you do this, it's not like I'm being this kind of host that goes, oh, I never watch, oh, I don't pay attention. It's you never want to hear other things that alter your opinions. And even though you don't do it where like you're intentionally trying to do it, you may hear something, and then when you do 3 hours a day, 5 days a week, sometimes you slip, and sometimes because you heard something, then it marinates in your brain, and then you bring it into your show as well. So when it comes to the Stephen A. Smith Show, and I think that is actually an Odyssey partnership as well, the Stephen A. Smith Show I find very funny because they'll ask him anything. I heard someone ask him last week, would he give up sex to see the Knicks win a championship? And in the clip, he was like tossing and turning and grunting for 10 seconds. It sounded like he was having sex. And then he goes, I can't do that. I love sex too much. So it's some good stuff. I've read Stephen A. Smith's book. I actually didn't read it. Let me rephrase that. I bought the audio version of the book, and I had him read it to me. And it was a phenomenal book. And in the book, multiple times, and there's some things you didn't know about his career and his life as well, And I thought it really did humanize Stephen A. Smith, right? A lot of people just see him screaming on television, going nuts, going wild, and they think a lot of it is an act. But you hear some of the humanization of Stephen A. Smith in the book. I thought it was very compelling, and it was a very good listen. But multiple times he talks about his desire to host late-night television. So maybe bringing Shannon Sharp over, maybe they'll have Shannon Sharp replace him at First Take. I think it'd be crazy, first and foremost, to leave First Take when something is working. And if it's not broke, don't try to fix it. So he could have aspirations to do other things, but I don't think the late-night television landscape is this great landscape as it once was, like 10, 15 years ago. But in the podcasting world, that podcast is growing. That podcast is humming. It has a ton of subscribers, ton of listeners, ton of downloads, and they just built this ridiculously nice studio. So maybe that's where he's going to go full-time down the road. I think he'd be crazy to leave ESPN. I think he'd be crazy to leave First Take, but whatever he's done in his career has worked, and more power to him. But he had Tom Brady on. I watched the entire thing. It was about 30 minutes. It was a really good watch. And Tom Brady did sound off with Stephen A. Smith on the Stephen A. Smith Show how the NFL has changed, and Tom Brady, the GOAT, has called the NFL very mediocre these days.
I think there's a lot of mediocrity in today's NFL. Yeah. I don't see the excellence that I saw in the past.
Why not?
The rules have allowed a lot of bad habits to get into the actual performance of the game. Mm-hmm. So I just think the product, in my opinion, is less than what it's been. I look at a lot of players like Ray Lewis and Rodney Harrison and Ronnie Lott and guys that impacted the game in a certain way, and every hit they would have made would have been a penalty. You hear coaches complaining about their own player being tackled and not necessarily, why don't they talk to their player about how to protect themselves? We used to work on the fundamentals of those things all the time. Now they're trying to be regulated all the time. Offensive players need to protect themselves. It's not up to a defensive player to protect the offensive player. A defensive player needs to protect himself. I didn't throw the ball to certain areas because I was afraid players were going to get knocked out. Mm-hmm. That's the reality. Wow. I didn't throw it to the middle when I played Ray Lewis because you knock him out of the game, and I couldn't afford to lose a good player.
He's 100% right. The NFL product, and this comes from someone that watches it every Sunday, watches it every Thursday. They want to throw a Black Friday game on. I'll bitch and complain about it, but I'll watch it on Friday, even though it's between the Dolphins and the Jets, and you know the Dolphins are going to win. They want to throw it on Saturday night. I'll watch football. Whenever you put football on, I'm watching, especially the NFL and obviously college as well. I'm a sucker for football. Now, arena football, XFL, I can live without the spring league football. But when it comes to the NFL and college, I will always watch. But it doesn't mean that the product is great. And it was a slight change. And even though the one football I can't stand is preseason. That's the one, it's very tough for me to watch preseason football. But from going from 4 preseason games to 3, when they already kind of half-assed the preseason, eliminating so much contact that does go on in the offseason and in training camp, I do believe it had a carry-down and a trickle-down effect where really the season doesn't get underway until the end of September. Now, those games matter. Those games count. But you don't see the preseason really end until October. But this year, it feels like it's been longer than that. You know, there's been some good weeks of football, but there's not a lot of clean football being played. And, look at the game last night. Those are 2 of the better teams in the NFL, the Eagles and the Chiefs. And you watch that game, and it was very sloppy. Now, maybe the rain has something to do with it last night, but there's a lot of times you're watching games this year, and you go, the product is very sloppy. And it drives me bonkers how no one knows how to tackle anymore. You know, I think we moved off of what is a catch. I'm not telling you that a catch is now black and white and it's very easy to see. There's still a lot of gray area with the catch, but how that was a debate for 10 years, you have no damn clue how they're going to officiate what is a catch. Now it's, how the heck do you hit somebody? Because I know Kareem Jackson is a repeat offender and he just got popped with a new suspension. I didn't think his hit, I said this yesterday, I didn't think his hit was that bad up against Josh Dobbs. I didn't really think he did anything wrong. And I asked people, how else are you supposed to hit somebody? Because football is such a quick-moving game. And I understand they try to paint it to be, okay, the NFL actually cares about player safety. I don't know how much the NFL actually cares about player safety. The NFL cares about money. The NFL cares about offense because they believe offense is what sells. So you want to tell me there's rules to protect the quarterback with how much quarterbacks are getting paid, $40, $50 million and all the money that's on the line? I understand it. But when we get to everybody else, it's like now you can't hit running backs. Now you can't hit wide receivers. And I just don't know what a safety or a linebacker is supposed to do. And Tom Brady's 100% right. And Brady has a ton of respect for Ray Lewis. If Ray Lewis played today in the NFL, Rodney Harrison, who was lethal, who should be in the Hall of Fame, Rodney Harrison, he played today, those guys would get suspended. They get suspended all the time. And I don't think they did anything for Ray Lewis's case on the field that was dirty. You know, Rodney Harrison, you could question. Definitely some hits that he had that should not have happened. And this is coming from one of the biggest Rodney Harrison fans on the planet. But nowadays, if they played, they would be like kicked out of the league. They would. Because I don't know how you hit the quarterback anymore. I don't know how you hit wide receivers. I don't know how you hit running backs. I don't. And sometimes, like the Kareem Jackson hit, I get it. He has a past. He has a history. But I don't think he did anything wrong. Sometimes the game is just so quickly moving. And when you're going to make a tackle, your head is going to be on a human being because you don't know where to move it. So Brady said a lot of things that are right. And also the coaching, too. What is the style that people look now for coaches? Player-friendly, team culture guys. Can't be it's a my way or the highway type of approach. I'm not saying those coaches don't ream out players and tear players apart and all that. But a lot of times the drill sergeant coach preaches fundamentals. And when you preach fundamentals so much and you get on players every step of the way, it makes those players end up being better. And it makes the game being cleaner. So I'm not saying that Brady is like 1,000% right and they shouldn't care at all about really like the player safety and all that because you have to. But I do roll my eyes whenever we talk about player safety in the NFL because the NFL tries to tell you they care about player safety, but then they'll add an extra regular season game to the season because it's going to make them more money. So Brady said a lot that I agree with, and I do think some of the onus is on the offensive player, but the offensive player would be stupid now to say, oh, I got to go protect myself because they know they're naturally going to get protected. Let's hear from Shannon Sharp and Chad Johnson. This is on their show together, Nightcap, and they agree with Tom Brady.
That's what I've been saying. These guys throw the ball over the middle, and then they get mad at the defensive player for knocking him out. No.
They reaching up with one hand. They pretty posing and looking good and looking cute. Yeah, okay. The NFL has handicapped the game of football. It has handicapped players that play on defense to a point to where they can't even tackle. Everything is a flag. Everything is a foul of some sort. They are fining players ridiculous amounts of money.
Yes.
For playing the game of football that we were taught from yay high on how to play. Tackling proper, doing all this stuff. Like there's nothing you can do now. There's nothing you can do.
And he's exactly right. How many times, and if you want to debate the Kareem Jackson thing, go ahead. I do not think that he should be suspended now additional games and it's a 4-game suspension they announced the other day. I don't know what else he's supposed to do. But if you want to have that debate, fine. But there's a lot of times where you see quarterbacks get hit, and I understand why they want to protect quarterbacks because that's the investment. That's where all the money is spent. But how many times do you just touch a quarterback and you make a tackle and they're like, oh, you put too much body weight. Like, what the heck are we doing? And then people get all bent out of shape when people say, oh, well, let's just put flags on the quarterback. But that's sometimes how it's officiated. And that's a big problem. Like, there's simple things. There's 3 simple things that should be simple in the NFL, and they're not. What's a catch? What's pass interference? And then how do you tackle? Like, those should be clear-cut things. And for a while, it was humana with what's a catch. Pass interference, it's just on the jurisdiction of the official. You sometimes see guys get mauled, no flag. Then you cough on a guy, up, there's a flag. But now when it comes to just tackling, I don't know how you're supposed to tackle running backs. I don't know how you're supposed to tackle tight ends. I don't know how you're supposed to tackle wide receivers. And a defensive player beats the offensive player off the line of scrimmage. The offensive lineman has a clear path to the quarterback. He tackles him, even rolls off of him. And then you see the yellow hanky sometimes even come out for a 15-yard penalty, unnecessary roughness, or roughing the passer. Like even last night, the Fletcher Cox hit. Like sometimes players know they're in the wrong and they refuse to admit it. Just watch like an NBA game. How many times does somebody make a foul and then they're freaking out about the actual call? But last night, Fletcher Cox, you could see the genuine look of surprise and the genuine look of amazement of what the bleep, how else am I supposed to hit the quarterback who is running at me? And that's something that gets very frustrating as a fan because you could root for who you want. You could cheer for who you want. Maybe your bets or your personal fandom plays a role in that. But there's always moments each and every football Sunday or on a Monday or a Thursday, whatever day of the week, where there is a tackle and everyone, and it's tough to agree in this world, but everyone, no matter what religion, race, your political views are, we go, how else are you supposed to tackle? And that's a big problem for the NFL. Finally, this is Chad Johnson on changes to tackling once again via Nightcap.
They say don't lead with the crown of the helmet. Okay, so people are start trying to use their shoulder now, but it's impossible when you're running full speed and somebody plays a bang plays and having to adjust your body and move it at a split second. Somebody's going to end up hurting themselves. They're going to end up hurting themselves. They've handicapped everybody. I think they're doing it purposely so the offense for the fans
That's what people want to
more exciting. They be more exciting.
They opened up the game because what do you like? You like scoring.
And these are three offensive players. Shannon Sharp, Chad Ochocinco, and Tom Brady. Now, if they're still playing, I don't know if they're advocating for all these defensive helping hand and lending a helping hand to the defense. That'd be a little bit different. They take advantage of it. And, right, Brady knew how to go get a flag because he knew what the rules were. But they're all exactly right. You will see someone get hurt, if you haven't already, because they're going to start to say, oh, I have to position myself in a different area. I got to slow down. And you think too much, and then you're going to end up getting hurt. That's just what happens. And Chad Johnson is 1,000% right. This game is violent. This game moves so quick. And now also in the era of slow everything down, watch it 1,000 times, zoom in and have something go viral on social media, you could slow something down and make it look dirty. And everyone could freak out and everyone gets on their moral high horse and all that stuff. But when you're watching in real speed, it doesn't look that dirty. And that's the same thing. That was my point yesterday with Kareem Jackson. I watched that in live speed. Heck, the refs didn't even see it. The refs didn't even call it a flag. But then you slow it down and you watch it 1,000 times and you go, oh, that shouldn't be allowed. That shouldn't be warranted. And it's like, you got to remember the speed at which the game does move. Zach Gelb here with you on CBS Sports Radio. We'll take a break. We'll come on back. We'll do a little overreaction, proper reaction. And also coming up in about 20, 25 minutes from now, legendary NFL quarterback Drew Brees will join us.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. 3 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Another NFL week is complete, which means it's another week to freak out about your favorite team. Which takes are truly crazy.
But sometimes a game can be so bad, it's almost good. You know what I'm saying? No.
And which are so crazy, they might be right.
He's 6'5", he's 245 pounds. He's probably a Popeye's biscuit away from being a tight end.
Zach lets you know in this week's edition of Overreaction or Proper Reaction.
Alrighty. Moist Mike, I know you're in a miserable mood today because you're Kansas City. How about those Chiefs? Lost to the Philadelphia Eagles last night after Samter thought the Chiefs were going to win by 14 or 17 points. But it's my understanding with sources close to the situation tell me that you come together with some great questions, and you've come up with some great questions they'd asked me off of Week 11 for a little overreaction, proper reaction. So show me what you got, stud.
Yeah, your sources are way off. These questions are terrible. They're an embarrassment, and I am ashamed of myself as a human being.
Good to know that you're mailing it in right before the Thanksgiving holiday.
Thanksgiving? When's that happening? So the Ravens got some good news about Mark Andrews' injury, and John Harbaugh says there's, quote, an outside chance he returns this season. Andrews has led the team in receiving 3 of the past 4 years and currently sits second on the team in receptions and yards behind their rookie Zay Flowers. Now, overreaction, proper reaction, the Ravens are not a Super Bowl contender without Mark Andrews.
Oh, that is a overreaction. It's not me diminishing the importance of Mark Andrews to the Baltimore Ravens, but the Ravens still have a phenomenal defense, and the biggest thing is they need number 8 to be healthy at the end of the season. The last 2 years, they have not been. So even though Andrews is a loss, it's not where I now say in a year where the AFC is wide open and Kansas City's been that team and even Kansas City has been vulnerable that I go, oh, it's inconceivable for the Ravens to get to the Super Bowl. Right now, doesn't mean that's going to be the case at the end of the season. I would put the Ravens as the best team in the AFC. So you say the Ravens are not a Super Bowl contender without Andrews. I would go overreaction there. I still think they can get to the Super Bowl.
Now, speaking of the Andrews injury, the Ravens star was injured on what's called a, quote, drop hip tackle, in which the defender grabs the ball carrier around the waist and uses all of his body weight to drag the player down. Now, Peter King reports the NFL will, quote, move aggressively to ban the drop hip tackle. Overreaction, proper reaction. We were just talking a lot with Tom Brady and about how the game is getting too soft. This type of tackle should be banned.
I would say, once again, that's an overreaction. I just don't know how we are supposed to hit anyone as defensive players now in the NFL. Samter, I know that you're always up for like a crazy, wacky idea. Do you think eventually defensive players are just going to get replaced by robots? So we could program robots where you're allowed to tackle, what you're allowed to do, and what tackle you're going to miss and where you're going to tackle. That's what it seems like the NFL wants to have happen. They don't want any tackling to be done. You can't hit the quarterback. Now you can barely hit wide receivers. There's all these flags each and every week. It's just crazy to me. I don't get how you're supposed to tackle. So maybe we should just go to robots and replace all defensive players. No more Myles Garrett. No more Aaron Donald. No more TJ Watt. Let's just concoct some robots out there, and we could program them how to tackle properly, because that's what it seems like the NFL's doing. They're putting a leash on everybody. It's wild.
If the NFLPA signs off on it, I'm all for it.
What would Samter be like as a robot, by the way? Imagine Samter as a robot on the defensive side of the ball. I think he'd be a pretty mean robot, Samter.
I mean, I basically am a robot at this point, so, it's not going to be much different.
Well, I'm not saying just with whatever your wife tells you to do. This would be the NFL would be telling you what to do. So Roger Goodell would basically take over as the role of your wife. Anyway, next question.
Now, Brandon Staley's seat is getting blazing hot.
It's on fire!
Another Chargers one-score loss, while Frank Reich seems destined to lose his job in Carolina for the 1-9 Panthers. Over the weekend, Jay Glazer said Reich has the hottest seat in the NFL. So overreaction, proper reaction, both the Chargers and Panthers should fire their coaches before the end of this season.
So I'm going to go overreaction there, and I'm going to split it here. Staley, yes. He should have been sent packing weeks ago. For Frank Reich, I don't think he's going to return next year. I've shifted my opinion on that, where I thought he would get the second year and then wouldn't be back after the 2024 season. I do believe Tepper's going to move on, but I don't think it behooves them in any way right now to move on from Frank Reich until after the season. So I would wait until after the season if the Panthers are going to fire Frank Reich, but for the Spanos family, they should have got rid of Brandon Staley about 3, 4, maybe even 5 weeks ago, or you could even argue before the start of the season. So I say yes with the Chargers, no right now for the Panthers. So that's why I end up going overreaction.
Now, my favorite player, Travis Kelce, who is on my Kansas City Chiefs, he's obviously been all the buzz now with his new courtship of Taylor Swift. However, over the past 3 games, 2 of which were losses, Kelce is averaging just 39 yards a game receiving, and obviously had that crucial fumble in the red zone in last night's loss to the Eagles. So overreaction, proper reaction. The distraction from all the attention he's getting is actually hurting Travis Kelce.
I just think Travis Kelce, still like the joke, just making sure we're going to make the cheesy broadcaster Taylor Swift joke. Travis Kelce just needs to shake it off after last night. Not a great performance, fumbling the football, dropping the football. He's just got to listen to his girl's music, little Tay-Tay music. Oh, they call her Mother, I believe. If you are a Swiftie, they refer to her as Mother, which always sounds a little bit creepy to me. And he just needs to shake it off. Now, Stu, let me ask you this question, because you gave me the thumbs up because you are a Swiftie. When the Swifties refer to Taylor Swift as mother,
right?
If you are dating Taylor Swift, which Travis Kelce is, does he refer to her as mother? Because that would be really, really, really weird.
I don't think so. I think
gets an
that's
exemption?
just Swifties. Yeah, I think he isn't included in that.
He is a Swiftie, though.
He is a Swiftie, but I guess he is King Swiftie. I don't know.
He is the Lord of the Swifties. So Samter asked me, the distraction from all the attention he's getting is hurting Travis Kelce. I don't buy that. That is a Skip Bayless take. Coming up on Undisputed with Skip Bayless and the 9,000 people that I've hired, and I still can't compete with Stephen A. Smith. Travis Kelce, is he getting distracted from Taylor Swift? We'll talk about that coming up in a few moments. No, he's not. Overreaction.
All right, I'm just saying 39 yards a game over his last 3. That's not Travis Kelce-like. I'm just saying pressure's got to get to everybody.
Age, injuries, starting to pile up. Not everyone could play until they're 40-something years old. I think that's more of a factor. And he kind of voiced that before the game last night, saying the lingering injuries are maybe making him contemplate retirement after this season.
Well, the Patriots benched Mac Jones on the final drive last week for Bailey Zappi. And now Bill can't even say his name.
All right.
I can never want to say his name. Now Bill Belichick is staying mum.
Wait. Are we playing Belichick sound here?
Yes.
What is this in regards to?
He's staying mum on who will start this week at quarterback.
All right, let me predict here. So a reporter asked Belichick, is Mac Jones your starting quarterback? I'm going to assume Bill said something like this. We evaluate each and every week in practice the entire roster. And we do what's in the best interest of the team. So we're going to put the best players on the field that help out the team. Let's listen up.
I've told all the players the same thing. Be ready to go. So hopefully they will be.
Have you made a decision on the starting quarterback regardless of what you
I've told everybody to be ready to go.
What you tell them and whether or not you made a decision?
Well, let you know on Sunday.
It's been so tough for me this year because I used to love watching Bill Belichick press conferences, to not watch these clips because I think I could really guess Belichick great. So I did see part of this clip today just pop up on Twitter where it's like Belichick addresses the future of Mac Jones, and it was so tough for me not to get what the take was in the moment and bypass the clip. But anyway, what's the question here, Samter?
So overreaction, proper reaction. Mac Jones has started his last game for the New England Patriots.
Ooh. I'm going to say overreaction. I still think they're going to go to Mac Jones this week. Now, it would make no sense because they just benched him on the final drive in Germany. But something just tells me with Belichick, you expect the unexpected. So, yeah, they'll probably go back to the well of Mac Jones this week. So since he's starting this week, when you ask me Mac Jones to start his last game for the Pats, I will say overreaction.
Now, Brown star Myles Garrett added 2 sacks against the Steelers to go up again to up his league-leading total of 13. He's now on pace for 22 sacks, which would just be a half sack short of Michael Strahan's single-season record of 22.5. So overreaction, proper reaction. Myles Garrett will break the sack record this year.
I don't think he'll break the sack record. But if he breaks the sack record, if the Browns make the playoffs, and in a year where there's not a lot of great MVP candidates, I think Myles Garrett has a great case to win MVP this year. Because on offense, they've lost Nick Chubb for the season. They've lost Deshaun Watson for the season. And all this dude does is dominate at an elite level. I know there's a debate, is it TJ Watt or Myles Garrett for Defensive Player of the Year? I think there's a strong case to be made for Myles Garrett to win MVP this season. And you saw it last week. You've seen it in previous weeks. And he's just flat out ridiculous. And he is so confident because he knows he could just roam from left tackle to right tackle to left tackle, and there's nothing that you could do to stop that man. So Myles Garrett will break the sack record this year. I think he'll come close, but I will go he just falls just short unless there's a Brett Favre somewhere out there that wants to fall down and help Myles Garrett get the record. But I don't think that's going to happen, so overreaction.
Did you see how during the game There was a loose Steelers helmet on the
Yeah, and
ground.
he
He
picked
picked
it
it up and handed it back to Broderick Jones. And after the game, he said, "Hey, man, I was just trying to help. I wasn't trying to cause any trouble this time."
Everyone panicked. They're like, "Uh-oh, here we go again."
Myles Garrett with the helmet. No way.
Mason Rudolph was projectile vomiting somewhere and having some bad flashbacks. Zach Gelb here with you on CBS Sports Radio. We'll take a break. When we come on back, legendary NFL quarterback Drew Brees will stop by. I know he hasn't played since 2020, but does he have any interest quarterbacking the Browns or the Bengals the rest of the way? We'll ask him that. Update time first. Here is El Capitan, Marco Belletti.
CBS Sports Radio. Sports Flash.
Well, Zach, the Steelers finally made the move. Offensive coordinator Matt Canada is out despite the 6-4 start. This marks the first time the Steelers coach has been fired in season since Burt Bell in 1941. Mike Tomlin going to divide up the responsibilities moving forward.
I'm excited about Eddie Faulkner coordinating our efforts, organizing staff responsibility and meetings, organizing game planning, leading our unit as a collective in review of our tape and preparation for upcoming opponents and things of that nature, things that the coordinator does. He has full authority in that regard and my support.
Now, as for the play calling duties, that goes to Mike Sullivan. Bill Belichick giving very little when it comes to his quarterback situation.
I've told all the players the same thing. Be ready to go. So hopefully they will be.
Have you made a decision on the starting quarterback regardless of what he said?
I've told everybody to be ready to go.
Colts wave former four-time Pro Bowl linebacker Shaq Leonard. College hoops, you got the Sunshine Slam. Florida State leading 18th-ranked Colorado 16-12. One final 11th-ranked Gonzaga rolled Syracuse 76-57. I'm Marco Belletti.
Jim Rome here. Coming up Wednesday in the Jungle, a conversation with Missouri head football coach Eli Drinkwitz and a What's Your Beef segment. See you Wednesday, 12 noon Eastern and 9 Pacific.
CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 2 minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining.
All righty, we continue. This is Zach Gelb Show, coast to coast on CBS Sports Radio. We'll go out to the guest line right now. Welcome in legendary NFL quarterback Drew Brees, who's playing some pickleball these days with the new Owl paddle, which reduces the sound of hitting the ball by more than 50%. Drew, appreciate the time as always. How you been?
Yeah, I've been really good. You?
Been fantastic. I got to start you off with the game last night. Eagles 9-1. They still haven't played their best football, and the record speaks for itself. But on the other side, you look at Kansas City, that's 3 straight games in the second half where they have not scored a point and have been shut out. Where's your concern level, even with how great Patrick Mahomes is, when you look at the Chiefs' offense right now?
Yeah, you know what? They've had moments over the last few years. I mean, look, you know this. They at any moment they could just go off, right? There's as explosive an offense as there is in football. They've got, arguably one of the best quarterbacks, and a guy who's just so dangerous, right? Like no game is ever out of reach with those guys. I mean, their defense has been playing really good this year. So it's one of those teams where they're always dangerous, but from week to week, you just don't really know what team you're going to get. And so they've had these moments where there's been a little lack of consistency. I can remember a couple of years ago, it was actually the 2021 season. Ironically they went on to go play well in the playoffs, but nonetheless they weren't getting the ball to Kelsey. There wasn't a commitment to the run. They kind of lacked some creativity with some of the things that they were doing. They were turning the ball over a bunch. Like it was really uncharacteristic stuff, but stuff that you would just sit back as like an experienced coach or experienced offense and say, hey guys, we're kind of beating ourselves, So I think that's what they're going to see is when they turn on the film is that, man, we're kind of beating ourselves here. It's not necessarily what defenses are doing to defend us. I mean, look, of course teams are going to try to double Travis Kelsey, right? I mean, that's what I would do. That'd be the number one guy I'm taking away if I'm playing that offense, right? Like he is the key to that passing game. But when you got a guy like Mahomes who has the ability to run around and make plays, when you've got a defense that's playing at a high level, there's no reason why you shouldn't win all the games you're supposed to win. And then, when you play against arguably one of the other better teams in the league, in the Eagles, you got to find ways to make the plays at the end in order to win.
Talking to Drew Brees right now. I got to get to your old ball coach and Sean Payton. Got off to a slow start with Russell Wilson, but now they're rolling, winning 4 straight. So they've shown together they could be really solid. They could be good. You know, there's a difference to eventually achieving greatness. Do you think this is the start of a great duo with Sean and Russ?
Yeah, you know what they've. I think I knew. Early on the season was a bit of an aberration. Because I think everyone felt like, man, coming off of last year, hey, the defense had been really, really solid last year, and that was just going to continue, and then it was going to allow the offense to, kind of slowly ramp up steam. Unfortunately, defense really came out and struggled, and I think there was, they lost some edge players from last year, and so they just needed a chance to kind of take what was a new scheme and just develop a comfort level with it. Offensively, I think they started off better than what I expected, and yet, on the other side of the ball, it just wasn't enough. So now you've seen them start to kind of hit their stride. You can definitely feel like, man, everybody's bought in. Everybody understands the direction and the expectation level that, I'm sure Sean has put into place there, knowing him as a head coach. And I'm interested to see how the offense continues to progress, because they definitely have some weapons. I think they've made a big commitment to the run game here over the last couple of weeks, especially. I think that really helps out what I think is one of Russell Wilson's great strengths, which is the play action passing game and his ability to push the ball down the field. It doesn't feel like they've done that a lot. So I think there's still a ton of room for growth there, which would make them even more explosive. So if you can get there and combine a great run game and explosive play action passing game with a defense that's playing well, then they become a really dangerous team.
Talking to Drew Brees right now. We'll talk about what he's doing today with the Owl Paddle in just a bit, playing a lot of pickleball. I know that you've seen Joe Burrow go down for the year, unfortunately, Deshaun Watson as well. I know you haven't played since 2020, but if either of those teams called you, would you be interested in joining the Browns and Bengals for the rest of the way?
No, you know what? My wife was born in Cleveland, so has a bunch of family there. That would be tempting. No, I'm just kidding. No, I'm very happy, coaching my kids and just being dad.
I'll tell you though, Cleveland has a damn good team, great defense, offensive line is solid. I think they just need a quarterback. Like, if you're interested, even if Tom Brady wants to retire again, I think you guys could really go win something this year in Cleveland.
I'll tell you what, that fan base deserves it. I know that.
Well, let me ask you this. Have you ever thought about maybe unretiring through the last 3 years? I know you're happy now. I respect what you just said, but has there ever been a moment where you were close to coming on back?
No, there was back my first year in retirement when I was actually working for NBC, and
yeah,
it was still kind of the crazy COVID stuff, and there was a moment where all the Saints quarterbacks were out either with injury or with COVID. And Sean asked me to come back and play in the Monday night game right after Christmas against the Dolphins, and I came really, really close to doing it. But I had obligations, other places that I felt like I needed to follow through with.
By the way, what are your view of the Saints right now? What do you think they could accomplish this year with what Dennis Allen and Derek Carr are doing?
I think they've had their moments. They went up to New England and had a big game offensively. They went to Indianapolis and had a big game offensively. Came back home and had another big game against the Bears offensively, and then go to Minnesota and Tampa, and you can point to some of these other games where it's like, man, it just didn't feel like they had great rhythm. Just kind of got, just a lack of consistency, I'd say, So, look, I think that's a team that has all the pieces in place. And they've got great veteran leadership. They got some talented young guys. Defensively, it's certainly a top 10, if not a top 5 defense. Offensively, they've got a lot of weapons. You got a guy in Derek Carr who's got command of the offense. So, there's really no reason why, every time those guys step on the field, you shouldn't expect them to win or be highly competitive. The record doesn't reflect that right now. But, I'd say the latter half of the season here, they got a bunch of divisional games. They're going to play They're going to play Carolina again. They're going to play Tampa again. They're going to play Atlanta twice. So in a division that's pretty tight right now, that'll be the determining factor. But I'd be surprised if they don't win the division.
When you watch the Chargers get into the other team that you played for, is it just as simple as Staley isn't the right guy for this team right now?
I wouldn't say that. For whatever reason, they haven't been able to get over the hump. It feels like there's those games where, man, offensively they're just super high powered. They're scoring a bunch of points and they can't stop anybody on defense. And then there's those games like last week where I felt like, all in all, the team played well. They just had, 2 or 3 plays where, you drop a ball that should have been a touchdown, you fumble the ball inside the 5 going in, and, so you had 3 red zone possessions and you got 6 points, So, like, stuff like that in the NFL when most games are decided by 1 possession, and you lose whatever that score was, 23-20 or whatever, they lose by a field goal. You drop a ball at the end of the game. Rookie receiver drops a go ball that probably should have been a touchdown, maybe the game winner. Like, you get frustrated because it's a loss, right? At the same time, you turn on the tape and it's like, guys, there's like 4 or 5 things that happen here that if we just do one of them, we win this game. So they got the quarterback. Right? I mean, that's priority number 1.
I'll tell you, I think they need, Drew. I think they need Belichick. There's all these rumors about Belichick maybe being done in New England. That would be a perfect match because Bill needs more talent right now. There's always fireworks in every NFL offseason. I mean, shoot, we've gone to where we're firing coordinators mid-season. We got 2 in a row these last 2 weeks, right? So there's always gonna be a coaching shuffle. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out. All righty, Drew, before we let you run, always appreciate you and jump on board with us. Tell me about your pickleball game these days. I know you're heavily involved in that and this new Owl Paddle.
Yeah, so I'm an owner in an MLP team called the Los Angeles Mad Drops Pickleball Club. We actually won the championship this year, which was awesome, and look forward to seeing the league grow and continue to progress. So Owl Paddles is I'm actually here in New York right now with John McEnroe. We're about to play pickleball inside of a library, believe it or not,
wow.
With these Owl Paddles to show just how quiet pickleball can be. There's the only negative with pickleball right now, or perceived negative, is that it can get a little noisy, with all the dink, dink, dink. So Owl has done a great job with engineering a paddle that now reduces the sound by 50%. So it's significantly quieter. It's actually the only paddle that is USA Pickleball quiet category designated. So this is a great option. You don't lack any performance, power. It's really kind of provides all those things in addition to being nice and quiet.
I know you're probably always looking to enhance the scouting department on the pickleball team. I'll just make a recommendation. I have a hidden gem for you. My Uncle Kenny, he may be in his 70s now, but he really is moving and grooving on that pickleball court.
You know what? Those are the kind of guys that sneak up on you. You step onto the court, a couple old guys, you're like, oh, we're about to run these guys. And all of a sudden, it's like a kung fu match. You don't know what hits you.
Drew, I know you got to run. Appreciate the time. You be well. Happy Thanksgiving.
All right, man. You too. All right, man. You too.
There he is, Drew Brees, joining us on the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. By the way, this portion of the show is brought to you by Wesley Financial. Stuck in a timeshare and want out? Contact Wesley Financial Group now and get a free timeshare exit information kit at wesleyfinancialgroup.com. News from Adam Schefter via the Cleveland Browns. Browns quarterback Deshaun Watson underwent surgery today to repair a displaced fracture in his right shoulder. The surgery was performed in Los Angeles. It was deemed successful. The rehab process is scheduled to begin on Friday, and a full recovery is expected prior to the start of the 2024 season. And as you just heard a few moments ago on CBS Sports Radio, if, let's just say, maybe the Browns call Drew Brees, it does not appear like he is interested. At first, I thought it sounded like he wanted to return when he's like, oh, my wife's from Cleveland, so maybe. And then he let out that laugh, and it's like, oh, he's not interested. He's fine just coaching his kids right now. So I don't anticipate that Drew Brees is going to be a quarterback for the Browns. I also don't think the Browns are going to call. Like, he hasn't played since 2020. The name I said yesterday he should absolutely do, and I even believe this even more today, is that it's Tom Brady. Like, Brady, I really do believe that the Browns, if they get Brady, could win a Super Bowl this year. Like, I don't think that's nuts to say. With a great defense behind that line, and it's a shame because the Browns just don't have a quarterback right now. They don't. They have no Dorian Thompson-Robinson, P.J. Walker. I know they just beat the Steelers, but you're only going to go so far with both those guys in that quarterback, and it's such a tough thing with how late Watson got hurt. It's already past the deadline. Like, who else can you go out there and get? Doesn't seem like Matt Ryan's interested in the broadcast booth, leaving the broadcast booth. I don't think they're calling Drew Brees. Phillip Rivers, I know he's been out for a few years, but it seemed like there was a chance he was going to go play for the 49ers late last year. So you go through those options, and even though Brady seems like it's wild, and maybe Brady's at peace with the decision and he's done, I at least got to make that phone call. Andrew Berry's at least got to make that phone call. And not only just make that phone call once, make that phone call multiple times. Beg for 2-3 weeks, because this team's 7-3 Cleveland, and if they just had a quarterback, which they don't, and even if Watson was there, maybe he could finally knock off the rust. But now with the injuries, we're going back to 2020, the last time Deshaun Watson was good. Didn't play 2021, didn't play 2022 or last 6 games, and has barely played this year. So then next year he has to knock off the rust, and then we're 4 years removed from that. So the chances of Deshaun Watson even going through the surgery and expect to make a full recovery and be there for the start of the 2024 season, that's one thing. All right, good. But how effective are you going to be? You ever going to live up to the draft picks and the contracts? The answer from me is no. Coming on back, Zach Gelb Show, CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. 1 minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
All righty, and away we go. Hour number 3 of our radio program. It is the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. 11 weeks through the NFL season, we start to have a clearer picture of which coaches are on the hot seat and which coaches aren't. Right now, I think you could identify 10 coaches that if you tell me at the end of the season one of these 10 coaches got fired, no one would be surprised, shocked with any of the 10. But let's go through them right now. And I'll give you a number 1 through 10 on how hot the seat should be. 1 being freezing cold, shouldn't be fired, to 10 being the seat's on fire, and we're all surprised that the coach has not been relieved of his duties yet. We start things off in Landover, Maryland, where, man, I don't think anything's working with the Commanders right now. They just got rid of Montez Sweat. They just got rid of Chase Young. Okay, fine, I could understand that. Sam Howell has some good weeks, has some bad weeks. But when it comes to Ron Rivera, it's clear that he's cooked. But the Commanders really reached a new low last weekend. And part of it's Ron's fault. The other part is still the old owner in Daniel Snyder with the crappy stadium that he has. I can't believe that in the year of 2023, in an NFL stadium, where how much money the NFL habitually prints each and every year, that you could have these gladiators, these modern-day warriors compete on a football field for 60 minutes and forget the fact that the Washington Commanders lost to Tommy DeVito, tossing 3 touchdown passes. Forget about that. Whether you like the Giants, you like the Commanders, you don't, the game ends. And both those players go back to their locker rooms before they either go home, go out, or get back on a train to go back to the swamps of Jersey. You want to shower. Because when you're on a football field, you sweat a lot, you smell like a gross pig, and you want to shower. Well, there was no hot water. How does that happen? And I've always said, I saw there was some poll today that like NFL players say they least like to play at MetLife Stadium. MetLife Stadium's the worst stadium in the league. Don't get me wrong. MetLife Stadium's a dump. It's $1 billion dump. But the worst stadium in the league is by far and away FedEx Field. I have gone there as a media member. It sucks when you're a media member. And there's a lot of perks when you're covering a game as a media member in the NFL. I've gone there as a fan. It's even worse. You have to walk like 2.5, 3 miles just to get to the train station. The parking lot's a dump. The stadium's a dump. The stands are a dump. There is no redeeming quality of that stadium. But you would at least think the lowest of lows, right? Like the easiest things, the bare minimum, we could get hot water. But no. And they would have to turn off all the water in the stadium. And therefore, that's why they didn't do it with all the concession stands and all that stuff. And the players after the game, yeah, you got to take a cold shower. There's no hot water. Stu, you've seen the Raiders do a lot of stupid things throughout the years. You've seen the Raiders get dragged a lot. You probably had to laugh when you read that because you probably said, hey, you could change the owner with the Commanders. You could change Daniel Snyder, get him out of there, and good riddance. We should all be happy about that. But the Commanders are still the Commanders, and they always find a way to mess it up.
Yeah, there's certainly a lot of similarities there. And I remember a couple years ago, you saw the fan getting drenched in the stands by the broken
sewage pipe.
The sewage pipe, yeah.
There was literal crap raining down on their fans.
Yep.
And remember when Jalen Hurts, I think this was last year, or maybe it was 2 years ago. Was he last year or 2 years ago? It had to have been. He was running off the field, and all the Eagles fans inside the Commanders' home were going nuts. They were jumping up and down, and the stands collapse. Like, we're allowed to laugh at it now because no one got hurt. But imagine if that's how the Eagles' star player would have been taken out for the season, that something bad happened to his leg because the stands couldn't hold upright. Man, the NFL really just needs to, bring on a wrecking ball in that stadium. They got to get a new stadium. But back to Ron Rivera. His hot seat meter, it's at a 10. There is no way Ron Rivera is going to be brought back as the head coach of this football team next year. We go to the Patriots, Bill Belichick. After 24 years of being the head coach, I am at the point where I'm ready to move on from Bill. I still believe Bill Belichick can coach in this league. I still think he could coach at an elite level, but he's going to turn 72 soon. You got to do a full rebuild. It takes 3 years, I think, if you're going to rebuild correctly, to fully rebuild. Year 1, wash. Year 2, slightly get better. Then year 3, go contend for the playoffs. It's in the best interest of the Pats to find that new young head coach, get a actual general manager in there, and also for Bill, because I think there's part of this. It's like Bill's getting dragged now, and some of it is his own fault, but Bill can still coach. He just needs more talent. He needs to do what Brady did. Realize there's not enough talent in New England. Go to Tampa Bay, which was a better situation, and then you could win. And Bill could do that if he goes to a place like the Los Angeles Chargers. I don't think Bill's back next year. I'm not going to say it's a 0% chance, but out of 1 to 10, how hot's the seat? I think it's 8.5. And you just keep on seeing more and more speculation, more and more articles, more and more reporting that the general sense around the league is that Belichick's done in New England at the end of the year. And I'm not saying they're going to fire him. They're going to look to trade him after this year. And it started on this show when Florio comes on out of nowhere, just drops this massive hint and this massive report that he's heard some chattering that Josh Harris is going to try to go trade for Bill Belichick at the end of the year. Sean McDermott with the Bills. I don't know if you guys saw this. It was inside the NFL last night. They do the mic'd up part of the game from the Bills and the Jets. Josh Allen, after throwing a touchdown pass of like 70, 80 yards, screamed, "I feel like I'm bleeping back." I know he struggled up against the Jets. It's still the Jets. You blowing out the Jets that don't have an offense that can function in the year of 2023, even though you're going up against the Jets defense individually, shouldn't be the moment that goes, "Oh, I feel like I'm back." That's actually concerning. And the Bills, I'm not buying stock back in on them just because they defeated the Jets. They go beat the Eagles this weekend on Sunday, different story. Then maybe we'll go look at them differently. But until the Bills display some consistency, because they've been maybe one of the most inconsistent teams in football this year, I'm not ready to say, oh, Buffalo's now going to be this force. But it is open. Like, you look at the AFC, the only two teams you can be really confident about are the Ravens and the Chiefs. And still, when you look at the Ravens, we haven't seen Lamar Jackson win many playoff games. He's only won one. And I'm a big Lamar fan. I'm a big Lamar supporter and defender. You look at the Chiefs, they haven't scored any points in the second half 3 straight weeks in a row. So if those two teams eventually stumble, it's up for the taking. Can Buffalo get back into the good graces? That's something that's still to be determined. But right now I would put the Sean McDermott hot seat ranking at about like a 7.5. I think we're trending more towards him getting fired and him not being brought back. And maybe Jim Harbaugh wants to go to Buffalo where it'd be a perfect fit. But there is a chance for him to salvage what he's built in Buffalo. Brandon Staley, 10. How Brandon Staley still has a job is amazing to me. And I can't even say it's because the Spanos family is cheap, because there's only a year left on the contract. There is no redeeming quality to Brandon Staley. And quite frankly, he's a pompous ass. The way that he was talking to the media, and I'm not against coaches being a little snippy and going back and forth with the media. I'm all fine with that. But when you hear the rumors about you being on the hot seat, and not only that, you don't change, you don't adapt, and you have a lot of talent there with the Chargers, and you're not even trending towards being a playoff team, for you to be snippy there, that's a bad job. You got to pick your spots, and you got to stop pretending as if you have all the answers, because you don't got the answers. And this dude's insufferable. This dude's defense, and he's defensive-minded coach, has been horrific. And I'm not even saying go be a Super Bowl team. Like, I'm not even saying, go get to an AFC championship game. Go make the playoffs. And I know there's some injuries there, but you have enough talent. I know you lost Mike Williams. I know Joey Bosa is now hurt once again. But you have enough talent to make the playoffs. And it's a flat-out disgrace that you're not going to make the playoffs this year. So Staley's at a 10. Arthur Smith. I think it's 50-50. He has really botched this QB situation this year. I now see they're going back to Desmond Ridder. Now, here's where he could really lose his job. He has been so adamant in trying to make Desmond Ridder more than what he is. I don't believe Desmond Ridder is a long-term answer in the NFL. I'm okay with the Falcons playing Desmond Ridder this year. Because sometimes, right, front offices and coaches, they go make a move for a quarterback that they know is not the right move. Like, don't just make a move to go get a quarterback because you feel like you have to. You have to love that quarterback. So they tried Desmond Ridder. They didn't draft him early, right? He was the second quarterback taken in that draft class after Kenny Pickett. And he went in front of Malik Willis. And that was 2 years ago. And now he's getting an opportunity to play. But you got to realize you have a solid defense and you have a lot of offensive pieces that could be good, especially in the run game, with two of them being Bijan Robinson and Tyler Algier. So, Arthur Smith trying to make Desmond Ridder at times this year the focal point of the offense, or if he's a franchise quarterback and trying to show that he is just stupid. It's insanity. Have the guy be a game manager. But Arthur Smith hasn't realized that yet. So even though I thought they'd win the division before the year started, and a lot of that was just because I can't trust Derek Carr and I didn't want to pick the Saints, full disclosure, Arthur Smith, you continue to try to make Desmond Ridder the franchise quarterback and prove a point. Even though Arthur Blank is very patient, he may have no choice at the end of the year but to get rid of you. Right now, I think it's a toss-up, so I put it at a 5. Matt Eberflus, it's a 9. I think the Bears are going for a complete overhaul after this year. Ryan Poles, goodbye. Matt Eberflus, goodbye. And they'll probably trade Justin Fields and get something back of value for Justin Fields, because I do think Justin Fields can still be a hot commodity. But for Matt Eberflus, is there ever a case to save your job? It was up against the Lions, and you were 3 minutes away from doing that with a lead that we thought was insurmountable, and your team could not find a way to slam the coffin shut there and go get the victory. That was it. That was the last stand for Matt Eberflus. I don't think he was ever deserving of being a head coach, but he got the job in Chicago, and he's done nothing the last 2 years that indicates to me that he has the potential to be a successful coach in the NFL. Some guys are just good defensive coordinators. Sometimes you're just a good coordinator. Eberflus's ceiling is just being a good coordinator, nowhere close to being head coach material. So they got good draft picks. They could be attractive for the first time in forever, the Bears. I think they clean house and they get rid of Eberflus, so it's at a 9. Todd Bowles, it's a 6.5. I don't expect Bowles to be back. The Buccaneers are not going to make the playoffs. I don't think there's a lot of pressure, though, and attention. A lot of people are looking at the Bucs. So maybe the Glazer family gives him another year. I think it would be pointless because I don't think Bowles is a good head coach. We talk about guys, good coordinators, not good head coaches. We've now seen 2 head coaching stints with Todd Bowles. Neither have been all that good. Neither have even been average. So for Bowles, go back to being a defensive coordinator. Maybe he wants to go to college. Maybe he can be a good college head coach, but he's not cut to be a good head coach, a successful head coach in the NFL. Frank Reich, this I think is, I guess you could say, the surprising one of the season, where I believe the Frank Reich hire, said it at the time, was underwhelming. I did not like the Frank Reich hire. I thought they should have just kept Steve Wilkes. If you weren't going to get Sean, if you weren't going to go get Jim with Peyton and Harbaugh, I don't think it made sense to bring in Reich because the last 2 years, Reich showed his deficiencies as an NFL coach. Could never beat Tennessee, could never beat Jacksonville, and Jacksonville constantly had his team unprepared and not ready to go, and they got dominated in every first half of football last year. They didn't win one. So bringing in Frank Reich, who has respect in this league, just didn't make sense to me. But after year one, with how really much David Tepper just loves to be a meddling owner and how irrational he is and how hasty he could be, and you hear Glazer on Fox before the game say he could be the coach that's under the seat that's the warmest and hottest right now. I think Reich, it's trending that he's not going to be back. So I put him at an 8. Brian Daboll, coach of the year last year, now on the hot seat. I think last week actually buys him some time. Unless it's for Belichick, I don't think the Mara family is going to make a change because you keep on changing coaches and GMs every 2 years. I know the Browns are now in a good spot. You end up looking like the Cleveland Browns. So Daboll, I think, deserves to be the coach next year outside of just bringing in Belichick. I would put Brian Daboll's seat in at a 2. And then finally, Robert Saleh. Saleh's at a 4. But I could turn up the intensity on that seat by the day because his teams take too many penalties. I know he doesn't have a quarterback this year, and it's so deflating with Rodgers going down. But the way that he handles the media is part of the job, especially in New York. And even though he's a nice guy, it sometimes sounds like amateur hour when he's at the podium when talking about the quarterback position. Ultimately, I think Rodgers makes the call on Saleh, and I think Rodgers likes Saleh because he's a player-friendly coach. But Woody Johnson has something long and hard to think about this offseason. Before you make that decision, you got to do it quickly because next year is your year. Next year is go time. You got to fix that offensive line this offseason. You got a good defense. You're getting Rodgers back. And you can't have questions at the head coaching position. There's questions around Robert Saleh. But ultimately, I think because Rodgers likes him, he'll be back. So I put that in at a 4. So on the hot seat meter, Rivera 10, Belichick 8.5, McDermott 7.5, Staley 10, Arthur Smith 5, Matt Eberflus 9, Todd Bowles 6.5, Frank Reich 8, Brian Daboll 2, and Robert Saleh in at 4. We'll take a break. We'll come on back. We'll update you on some of the biggest stories in the world of sports with some audio. We call that segment the News Brief. It is the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. Back in 5.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 3 minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. .45 seconds remaining. .30 seconds remaining. .15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Time for your daily news brief. We get you caught up on the rumors, reports, and reconnaissance from the day in sports.
Dan Campbell is the coach of America's team. He is now America's coach. Listen up. This is via our pal Stoney and Jansen on 97.1 The Ticket in Detroit. What is, or maybe what isn't, on Dan Campbell's Thanksgiving plate?
Must have is ham. I'm a big ham guy.
Okay.
I'm not a turkey guy unless it's fried turkey. Then I'm all for it.
I hear you.
That's a tough one. There's you know what? I am not a dressing fan. I'm not a dressing fan. I'm not a cranberry fan.
Okay.
I gotta throw that right out to the dogs. That's going straight off the plate, right on the floor.
Dan Campbell, my man, thank you for joining the fight. Thank you for being the voice for the voiceless and leading the charge. That turkey is just overrated. We've all been taught, oh, you need turkey on Thanksgiving. Tradition, tradition, tradition. We all know turkey isn't good. The only way it's somewhat good is if you fry it like what Dan Campbell said, but there's other options. And for Dan Campbell, he loves ham more than turkey. For Zach Gelb, yours truly, I like lasagna over turkey. That's a heck of a job by Dan Campbell. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And it's more reasons why we should be rooting for the Detroit Lions this year. Samter, don't you gotta love that answer? He basically just said, throw the turkey to the dogs, and they maybe won't even eat it.
You know, the Minnesota Vikings sound really interesting this time of year right now. I used to be a Lions fan. I used to be a Dan Campbell fan. He's lost me. Let's go everybody else with the Lions. You know what? They play every year on Thanksgiving, and everyone wonders why the heck are the Lions playing at home on Thanksgiving every year when they suck. You know what? I'll say it again. They don't belong on Thanksgiving. Get off my plate, Dan Campbell.
Now, what happens after the game? It's usually the players that are eating the turkey legs. What happens? They're interviewing Dan Campbell. Even though I accept him joining the side of us and leading the fight, walking hand in hand against turkey on Thanksgiving and saying how overrated and trash it is and how average at best it is, he better not be getting interviewed by Tracy Wolfson or whoever after the game. Carissa Thompson may be interviewing him. Speaking of Dan Campbell, she talks to everybody that has these great reports. Better not be eating a turkey leg. He eats a turkey leg after just dissing turkey. It would be very fraudulent of him. So, Coach, say no to the turkey. Continue the good fight. We thank you. Here is Cam Newton on the Dan Patrick Show when Dan Patrick asked him, hey, Cam, you think you're a Hall of Famer?
Are you a Hall of Famer?
Hell yeah.
Okay. All right.
What's more important, impact or championships? In a lot of ways, shape, form, I am Allen Iverson. I only played in one Super Bowl.
Yeah.
I lost. So if you're asking me, the original question is Cam Newton a Hall of Famer? My impact to this game is without a doubt seen.
So I don't think Cam's a Hall of Famer. And the comparison to Allen Iverson, I get it in terms of culture impact and changing the way that the game is played. But you got to have not just a few years of greatness. You got to have many years of greatness. And even though Cam had some great individual seasons, there weren't enough years of greatness. You didn't have 7, 8 great years. And that's bare minimum what makes a Hall of Famer. You got to have 6, 7, or 8 great seasons. Cam didn't do that. And also in this interview, he talked about, like, would you rather be Robert Horry or would you rather be Allen Iverson? Like, you don't just need the championships to be a Hall of Famer. That's not the requirement for me. I know some people make it a requirement or they feel like you need to win a Super Bowl to get into the Hall of Fame as a quarterback. That hasn't always been the case, but that's a big conversation. But Cam, you weren't consistently great. You had some great seasons, and I defended Cam for years. I thought it was ridiculous when people went after him. Oh, he's celebrating too much. He was giving footballs to children after he would score touchdowns. Like, what did people have a problem with? But unfortunately, injuries in your body not being able to hold up is what cost you your chance at being a Hall of Famer. There was a while where you looked like you could be a Hall of Famer, but there just wasn't enough longevity with Cam. Let's go to Patrick Mahomes on the state of the Chiefs offense. They got shut out for the 3rd straight game in a row in the second half.
I think offensively, we're just not where I would want to be at this point in the season. And that's everybody. Starts with me. I got to make better throws at certain times. We have to continue to move the ball down the field and just be more consistent thoroughly throughout the game.
All righty, let's hear Mahomes on the drop by Marquez Valdez-Scantling, or I like to call the new Clifford Franklin of the NFL.
I have no regret. I mean, they triple teamed Travis, so I went to the guy that won downfield, and Marquez won. Just didn't come away with the ball. I mean, I could probably throw a little bit shorter. He was that open. So, yeah, you just got to continue to try to get better and better. Defense is keeping us in games, and if we can find a way to just get a little bit better as an offense, we're going to win a lot of these games.
Outside of who his brother is, it is impossible to hate Patrick Mahomes. Think about that. He threw a dime last night right in the breadbasket of Marquez Valdez-Scantling. Would have put them up. They still may not even win the game because the Eagles, there was like $130, $140 left. They could have quickly get the ball down the field, get a touchdown, or get a field goal to tie that baby up and go to overtime. But you threw a perfect pass with an offense that really doesn't have that many weapons outside of Travis Kelce. Like Pacheco, the running back out of Rutgers, is a solid player, and he's aggressive when he runs. I love the way that he runs and his physical style. But there's really nothing on this offense. And you throw a dime right to Marquez Valdez-Scantling, and he dropped it. And listen to Mahomes. Oh, maybe I could have thrown the ball a little bit shorter, give him a better chance on the football. Like, dude, what are you talking about? Just because of how great of a teammate that Patrick Mahomes is. Let's go to Andy Reid on the offensive struggles that the Chiefs continue to have.
I've seen teams change things around quick in this league, so we got to take care of business there and get it done. So I'm not standing here having to talk to you guys about this. I want to get it right, and so I'm a part of that too.
So we know the Chiefs have offensive problems. We know that their offense has not been this great offense as we've seen in years past. Doesn't mean they still can't get to the Super Bowl and win it, though. Because as I've been saying for weeks, this defense for Kansas City this year is the strength of this team. That defense played their ass off last night. You hold the Eagles to 21 points, you should win the game. But they didn't. Because the offense only put up 17. The offense turned the ball over in the red zone. The offense had a fumble with Travis Kelce. And then you also had Marquez Valdez-Scantling dropping the football, which was an easy touchdown. So the offense has problems. The offense has warts. But even with how ugly, right, the offense looks this year, Chiefs are still a top 5 team. Chiefs are still a top 2 team in the AFC. So we keep on saying vulnerable. We keep on pointing out the flaws. If they could just get this a little bit better, if they could just get it like from a medium rate here of a jump to getting better from where it is right now, this is a team that absolutely can get back to the Super Bowl and win the entire thing this year. Because as long as you have 15, you will have a shot. And it may not be pretty during the regular season, but in all reality, the regular season doesn't mean jack for the Kansas City Chiefs. Come playoff time, that's when they're judged. Because now, it's not fair, but life isn't fair. Every year for the Chiefs, it's Super Bowl or bust. That doesn't mean you're going to win the Super Bowl every year. Like, I'm not going to be sitting here if they don't win the Super Bowl this year and be like, you got to fire this guy, you got to get rid of this guy. But that's just a standard when you reach a level of greatness that Mahomes has. And last year, what did people say? Oh, they can't win without Tyreek, and they ended up winning the Super Bowl. So they are begging someone to dethrone them, come take their seat inside the AFC and inside the entire NFL as well. And right now, what? There's 5 contenders maybe to go win a Super Bowl this year? Eagles, Niners, I throw the Lions in there, Ravens, and then also the Kansas City Chiefs. They are not dead yet. They're the farthest thing from being dead. And if Marquez Valdez-Scantling catches that football, he didn't, we're not even having this conversation today. Here is Nick Sirianni on the win for the now 9-1 Philadelphia Eagles.
It really showed itself tonight how together we were. Again, because that was just a gritty, whoever was going to win that game was going to win it gritty, grimy. It wasn't pretty on either side, right? And whoever was going to win that game was going to do it gritty, grimy, nasty, all those. What are those adjectives? Yeah, okay, thanks. I went to Mount Union, but it is a good school.
What are those adjectives? That's Nick Sirianni. Play that for me one more time, Stu. I got to hear that one more time.
It really showed itself tonight how together we were. Again, because that was just a gritty, whoever was going to win that game was going to win it gritty, grimy. It wasn't pretty on either side, right? And whoever was going to win that game was going to do it gritty, grimy, nasty, all those. What are those adjectives? I went to Mount Union, but it is a good school.
Sirianni's everything that I want in a football coach because he's like all ball. He's a meathead, going through all the adjectives: gritty, grimy. What are those things called again? What did I learn that was in 3rd grade? Oh, yeah, adjectives. Let's go to Bill Walton. Now, I didn't hear any of this, and I purposely didn't want to hear about it until we got on the air. I was seeing so many tweets last night in whatever game that he was doing that what the heck is Bill Walton saying? I know a lot of times whenever he does game, people think he's like on things and stuff. But here is Bill Walton talking about volcanoes.
They start games like an explosive volcano, the ones going on in Iceland and Japan right now.
And also, let's hear Bill Walton had an odd comment to his broadcast partner, Kanoa Leahy.
And one for the Silver Swords. They continue to fight, Bill. I know you carried some heavy baggage. You've recently lost your dad. But with the guys coming to try to keep the healing momentum going.
What? Wait, I don't even get... Play that again?
And one for the Silver Swords. They continue to fight, Bill. I know you carried some heavy baggage. You've recently lost your dad. But with the guys coming to try to keep the healing momentum going.
That's such a weird thing to say to somebody. At first, I didn't think he was... Like, I'm laughing. I didn't think he's going to, we're going to talk about, we know you just lost your dad. I thought he was making some joke about carrying something else that was heavy. Man, that was bizarre. All right, here is Coach Prime, Deion Sanders, has lots of questions about Mount Rushmore.
Yeah, my expectations are out of the darn park. You got to understand, man. I mean, what's those little foreheads that's in California? What do they call those? The people faces engraved? Yeah. Come on, man. I sat up there. It's in where? I thought it was in L.A. all this time. Wow, my geography. That's the Hollywood thing? That's what I thought. I'm sorry. Thank you for educating me. Jesus, South Dakota.
That's amazing. No, I'm not going to pretend to be the most erudite person on this show. But thinking the Hollywood sign where the 4 presidents on Mount Rushmore is an all-timer. That is an all-timer by Coach Prime.
And the other part, listen, not knowing where Mount Rushmore is, most people should know that, but fine. If you don't know...
Do you know where it is?
Yeah, of course.
You do?
Well, they say it, but yes, it's in South Dakota.
Do you?
Yes. I've driven past. I've never actually been to it.
Do you know the 4 presidents on Mount Rushmore?
I do.
Go ahead.
And the 4th one is the greatest one, but it is Jefferson, Washington, Lincoln, and my man, greatest president of all time, Teddy Roosevelt.
Okay.
Yes. But
one
thing not to know where they are. It's another thing not to know the name of them. He's like, what's that thing called with the 4 faces? How do you not? Everything is the Mount Rushmore of blank, the Mount Rushmore of football, the Mount Rushmore of point guards. Everyone knows what the Mount Rushmore of blank is. How do you not know Mount Rushmore?
You're right. Like, you don't know it's in South Dakota. I could live with it. You don't know the 4 presidents that are on it. I could live with it. Not knowing the name of it, Mount Rushmore, it's a good job out of you, Sam.
Now, if you didn't look it up, did you know the 4 presidents that were on?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I didn't look it up.
See, everybody knows Washington, Jefferson, and Lincoln. No, a lot of people forget about Teddy.
Belletti? Marco Belletti? You're like a voice of reason here. I always go to you. I used to say that when I was doing 6 to 10.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that's crazy that someone doesn't know, like, the 4 presidents on Mount Rushmore?
No, I can understand that.
Okay.
Be reasonable. Yeah, I can get that. You could also have a brain cramp. That I can get. And whether you should probably know it's South Dakota, but you get confused with South Dakota, North Dakota, or you just don't know. I can live. The fact that you think it's in L.A. and you don't know what it's called, those are 2 issues.
By the way, I know that you did not get to spend Thanksgiving with your family for 20-something years, 25-something years?
96 through 2021. I worked every one of them. That doesn't mean that I didn't sometimes see my family. Sometimes you got an early shift. Sometimes you got a chance. Yeah. But I did work every Thanksgiving from 96 through 2021.
So you know me. I do not like turkey on Thanksgiving.
Mm-hmm.
Dan Campbell made it clear he doesn't like turkey on Thanksgiving. Where is Marco Belletti at? Well, he didn't have many Thanksgivings, but as of late, you have. Where is Marco Belletti at? What do you like on your Thanksgiving plate?
I'm pretty easy in the fact of if I'm not cooking. So I'm going to wherever I'm going.
So whoever
you're
feeds
already
you.
cooking. Yeah, as long as I know you're a big lasagna guy. I'm good with lasagna. I'm good with. I don't love turkey, but it's there. It's Thanksgiving. Sure,
Like you'll
I'll eat
pick
it.
at it, but you're not walking away saying, "Man, that's the greatest thing I've ever had."
No, I am a big stuffing guy though. So there's going to be a lot on the plate. So if there's just a little bit of turkey, but there's a lot of stuffing, good. I'm looking for the sides. I'm looking for whatever else is on the table. And you got to remember, I'm Italian. So that doesn't equal
You're Italian?
green bean casserole.
Marco Belletti, you're Italian?
Like we don't do even like a barbecue.
I thought you were Russian.
Yeah, like even that's what I'm saying. Like Italians are a little different. Like, we don't have a barbecue and it's like, oh, what do you want? A burger, steak, or chicken? Like, no, there's a million other things here.
Yeah.
There's stuffed mushrooms
my
somewhere.
sausage
You know what I
and
mean? Like
peppers.
there's 100 different things. So there's going to be a bevy of things on the table. I'm going to find my way to all of it. Will I put a piece of turkey on it? Possibly, but I don't have to because there's enough stuff to make me full.
Marash was crushing me in the newsroom today because I do this every year where I say I don't like turkey. He's like, "What's the matter with you?" Like, well, I have ham, I have lasagna, I have turkey. I'm like, yeah, Sean, like, no offense. You never pass up a meal. So, like, you would eat the things that are, like, the worst thing ever.
Well, and I also I don't think everybody does that. Does everybody put lasagna, ham, turkey, and a bunch of other like, I feel like you pick one. No? Isn't like normal people just you eat turkey or ham? Like, do you really put like 4 or 5 real full meals?
So when I was a savage and when I was like a fat pig, yeah, like 5-6 years ago, I could eat anything. But now it's like once I have my lasagna and a few appetizers, stuff like that, and then there's dessert. Like I can't eat that much.
No,
as I
that's
used
fair.
to.
I'm just saying, is it all on the table? Are there 4 different main course
In Marash's
meals?
house, yes. In my house, no.
But that's what I mean.
Because we ditched the bird. We got rid of it.
Yeah, in most houses we don't have that.
Mm-hmm.
We're Italian. We're crazy. So there's going to be that. You're going to have leftovers for 3 weeks. That's a Tuesday.
Oh,
that never mind a Thanksgiving. So that's why it's different. I would think
I'm
most people, if you have
bummed.
one meal, it's different.
So I'm actually bummed. I know we got to get to the update. The leftovers are some of the best parts of Thanksgiving because you have it for several days.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to Michigan, Ohio State Friday morning and then going to the game on Saturday. So my grandmother, Italian grandmother, she usually, before the meal's even served, she's already getting the Tupperware out,
Right.
getting ready to put it all in the Tupperware to give you a care package. I can't even take leftovers this year.
Yeah, I got to tell you, I'm not going to cry you a river. You're going to Michigan, Ohio State, and you're worried about leftovers from Thanksgiving?
That's true.
Yeah, I feel for you.
I'll get a good Ziggerman's Deli sandwich that will
I feel for
make
you.
up for it.
I don't know how you're going to survive Saturday. I really
Yeah,
don't know how you're going to do it.
We should start a GoFundMe.
Yeah,
for
that's
me,
rough.
Right?
That's rough.
The leftover GoFundMe. Here's El Capitan, Marco Belletti.
CBS Sports Radio. Sports Flash.
Now, Zach, Steelers' offense has been stuck in neutral virtually all year. Now the move has been made. Matt Canada out as offense coordinator. Mike Sullivan takes over the play-calling duties for Mike Tomlin.
I am quite confident and excited for the men who get an opportunity to evolve in terms of their roles. One man's misfortune in this business is another man's opportunity. We say that regarding injury. It's the same thing under these circumstances.
So Tomlin's team will take on the Bengals this week, an important game for playoff positioning. Also the first game for Cincinnati since the injury, of course, to Joe Burrow. Colts wave former 4-time Pro Bowl linebacker Shaq Leonard, 3-time first-team All-Pro player. He underwent a pair of back surgeries last year to repair nerve damage earlier this month. He also expressed his frustration at his lack of playing time. College hoops, you got the Sunshine Slam tournament. We're in the second half, 7 minutes remaining. Florida State, a 51-49 lead on 18th-ranked Colorado. One final, that was 11th-ranked Gonzaga, taking out Syracuse, 76-57. Padres have found their new man to take over for Bob Melvin. They tapped former Cardinals skipper Mike Schilt. Melvin, of course, left for the Giants earlier in the offseason after 2 years in an NLCS appearance. Schilt spent 3+ seasons with the Redbirds, made the postseason all 3 years, including the NLCS in 2019. I'm Marco Belletti.
Looking for CBS Sports Radio online? Your favorite hosts and the best sports content and entertainment are available 24/7 on social media and YouTube and in the palm of your hand with the free Odyssey app.
CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. 2 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Hey, this is Howie. And this is Nick from the Backstreet Boys. And you're listening to the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. And guess what? Zach is back. All right.
He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio. This is the Zach Gelb Show.
All right, it is Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. I'll get to Mike in Abilene, Texas in just a second. 855-212-4CBS, 855-212-4227. So I just want to quickly touch on something that Travis Kelce was talking about last night, where he said because of all the injuries and surgeries that he's had to have, that like he has thought about retirement and he thinks about it a lot. And some people see that, they go, whoa, what is he talking about? Why would he retire? I think we forget that Travis Kelce, in a football sense, is old. He's 34. He just turned 34 in October. So he's not a spring chicken. And you got to remember, even though he's not the world's greatest blocker, with how often he has taken hits, because he's called a tight end, but he's basically like a huge slot wide receiver. He's taken a lot of hits. And even in an era now where they protect the player more, they protect the offensive player more, what else does this guy have to prove? He has all the money in the world. He's got all the attention that he needs in the world. He's got a great, successful podcast now. He is a superstar on and off the field. He's going to the Hall of Fame. He's got 2 Lombardi trophies. He's got all the all-pro teams that he needs. He's an all-decade team member from 2010. There's really not much left to accomplish for Travis Kelce. Now, you get addicted to the brotherhood of football, and him and Mahomes have such a great relationship and all that, and you want to see how many you could win. But I think his brother, Jason Kelce, this is it for him in the NFL. And he's still playing at elite level. We talk about Brady, right? Getting better with age, fine wine. Jason Kelsey's been that same kind of getting better with age where all like the big time awards come towards the end for Jason Kelsey. Like, look how many all-pro teams he's made in the second half of his career. It's crazy. So I really do believe this is it for Jason Kelsey after this season. But for his brother, like, I'm not saying I believe he's going to retire this year, this offseason, but it wouldn't shock me. And I only think he's going to play for 2 more years at most. Like, we look at the age of Travis Kelsey. Next year he's 35. The year after that he's 36. Stop with how much they use him and how much they ask of him in that offense where you have no other wide receivers. It's only so much of a beating that you could take. And you got to start thinking about what does life look like after football. I know we all get caught up in the bubble and we only care about what you do on the football field, but there's only so many hits that you could take. And there's no stone that's left unturned in his career. He's one of the greatest tight ends of all time. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer. He's made all the money in the world. He's got all the attention in the world. And he's won enough Super Bowls with 2. So I don't think we're that far away from retirement of Travis Kelsey. And I think a lot of people think he's a lot younger than what he actually is. Because, yeah, in real life, 34 is not that old. In the football world, 34 is pretty damn old. And you're on the back 9 of your career. And I don't think he's on hole 10 or 11. He's on more so hole like 16, 17. 855-212-4CBS, 855-212-4227. Let's go to Mike in Abilene, Texas, who is a big Ohio State Buckeye fan. Mike, what's shaking?
Hey, buddy, I found you.
Appreciate it. What's going on?
Man, great stuff. Real quick, happy Thanksgiving. Hope you have a great holiday. Man, it's here. It's finally here. I feel good. It's in hostile territory. It's going to be a very, very large mountain to scale. I think you know me. You know how rigorous my fandom is. I'm very harsh on my Buckeyes. I don't think we necessarily need to fire Ryan Day if we lose. Honestly, the scandal, the cheating stuff is, it's cool. Like, I don't know. You know me, though. I've said it so many times. There's only one freaking thing that matters, and it happens in a couple days. And if we can pull this off, it's a big, big, big game. I like that we're both ranked high. It's nothing's better than this game. It's the greatest game in college football. It's the greatest rivalry. I'm not going to make any predictions.
Oh, come on, Mike. You got to give me a prediction here. I got one little prediction. What do you think the final score is going to be of Ohio State and Michigan?
I won't predict the final score, but if we can get a little momentum early, we can hang with them in the run game. We can out-throw them in the passing game. I think the defense is the big question for me. Just we've looked a lot better this year, but they're pretty dang good, and they can run that ball. So I hope it's going to be one in the trenches because –
You don't sound confident, Mike.
Say again?
You don't sound confident.
I'm nervous, man. This is how excited I am. Like I don't sleep this week. I don't take the M out of all the words. I think that's kind of stupid. Obviously, my name is Mike, so I'm not going to
that would be tough. Put an X in your own name.
That would be dedication, and I guess I'm not that far. But yeah, I predict a victory. Again, we don't need to fire Ryan Day, but without Harbaugh there. Like that should be enough of a difference for us to at least stay unified and rallied. They're going to throw some blows. They're probably going to throw them early. It's going to be loud. It's going to be hostile. If we could pull this off in their territory.
Are you going to the game, Mike?
Go ahead.
Are you going to the game?
Oh man, no. I haven't ever been to an Ohio State game, man. It's a bucket list thing for me to go to the shoe. So. I feel like I can't really go to a game unless it's the shoe. Mm-hmm. I definitely don't want to go to the big house and potentially be in the midst of a bunch of Michigan fans while.
Well, Mike, I got to let you run because I'm up against it. The show's coming to the end. But happy Thanksgiving to you and your family. Appreciate the phone call. And I would say good luck this weekend, but I just wouldn't mean it. Mike in Abilene, Texas, would always call me when we were on from 6 to 10 p.m. Eastern. I even think he called me going back to when I was on the overnights. And he is the most. He seems down there, but he's like the most passionate Ohio State fan that I know. And when Ohio State wouldn't play well, or if he, like last year, he wasn't a big fan of C.J. Stroud, and he just didn't think C.J. Stroud was that good, he would just make these phone calls, and he would be like ranting and raving, and he would sound so depressed. There was a time we didn't hear from Mike in like 3 months, and I put the bat signal out there. Like, Mike, we just need to hear from you. We just want to make sure that you're okay. Like, Batman, we're putting the signal out there. We got to see a Superman signal. We got to see you show back up. We got to make sure that everything's okay with you. But, man, he said he was confident about the game, and then when he was going on it, couldn't even give a prediction. That means he knows it and I know it. Michigan's going to win the game, 27-20. Final show of the week coming up tomorrow. We'll talk to you at 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific. We out. Have a great weekend, everybody. Have a